Chapter 8:10. The giant god warrior gradually increased the strength of its embrace around the primordial star. Cracks gradually appeared on the already battered planet, and streaks of dark red light seeped out of the cracks. It was unknown whether it was blood or magma. On the other side, Elder Earth and Elder Ni's true bodies saw that the situation was far from good, and they soared into the air in an attempt to save Wang Zhong. The cone-shaped stone of history changed its angle in the air and aimed its tip at the giant soldier god. Then, it flew over with a loud rumble and crashed into the giant soldier god with a heavy sense of history. As for the heaven-devouring living soil that could change its shape freely, it transformed into a large net and spun in the air towards the giant soldier god. It wasn't just the two of them. The other world-shattering monsters that were fighting Qinguang's stone soldiers also put down their opponents. Even if they were to be beheaded or stabbed in the heart, they all turned around to save Ward. The endless reincarnation will needed the three elders to control it together. If Ward died first, the formation would collapse, and the others would die without a doubt. As long as they could save Ward, they could be revived even if they died. Whether it was for themselves or for their entire race, the world-shattering monsters knew what was important. In fact, if they had known earlier that Qinguang was so powerful, the three elders would have thought of more ways to protect themselves even if they still used the endless reincarnation wheel. They would have even set up another defensive magic formation underground. They wouldn't have exposed their true bodies so openly. Who would have thought that this guy would be able to lift Ward, who was not weak, like a ball just by summoning a giant divine weapon of obelisk? But Ward did not have the slightest ability to resist. In an instant, the stone of history that Elder Earth had transformed into crashed into the giant soldier god's chest. The giant net formed by Elder Ni's heaven-devouring living soil pounced onto the giant soldier god's back like an octopus, and swept up its torso as if it had eyes of its own. It seemed that Elder Ni was planning on sticking to the giant soldier god's arms and forcefully tearing them apart, which were determined to crush the primordial star. As for the attacks of the other world-shattering monsters, most of them landed on the giant god warriors in 2s and 3s. Sparks flew and dust rose, but it was actually useless. Originally, the ordinary soldiers of Worldbreaker shouldn't have been so weak. However, the 9 captains, World 1 to World 9, had all died at Qinguang's hands. Although World 11 to World 100 were considered captains, their true strength was far inferior to the 9 captains. In addition, the damn-titled warriors were stronger than the 9 captains. However, in order to completely activate the world-shattering Holy Tribe's ultimate weapon, the World Sand, 17 of the 18 had died and 1 survived. If it weren't for the fact that Qinguang could roughly see the memory fragments of the world-shattering Holy Tribe's warriors each time he killed and the conflicts between him and the world-shattering Holy Tribe, Qinguang was certain that there wasn't a single good person in this vicious assassin organization. Every so-called monster was actually an assassin who had more or less killed many people. Qinguang almost sympathized with these people. Forget it, it's time to put an end to them. In their worldview created by the punishment realm, he had become a thief who had stolen their sacred cores. It was ridiculous, and he felt even more uncomfortable. To be honest, although the attacks of the others were useless, the desperate charge of the 2 great elders, as well as Walter's frantic struggle when his desire to live erupted, really caused some trouble for the insufferably arrogant giant god. The collision with the stone of history caused it to stagger a step back. The giant net formed by the heaven-devouring living soil also caused a lot of trouble for its arms, greatly reducing its pressure on the primordial star. Unfortunately, the giant god warrior was ultimately a killing weapon personally made by the Marmalade Bomber. It was born for destruction, and the level suppression made the World Shatterer Holy Tribe members feel despair. Although it had no soul or emotions, the natural dignity of a high-ranked elemental creature was innately accompanied by the elemental power in its body. After being provoked by these lowly creatures in all sorts of ways, it exploded on its own without Chen Guang's orders. After regaining its footing, a strange magical formation that even Chen Guang couldn't understand appeared beneath the giant god warrior's feet, becoming a formation within the endless reincarnation wheel. Chen Guang watched with great interest. It seemed that he still had many areas to explore and learn about the path of the earth element. Although his level was high enough, he still had to learn how to use the earth element. He wasn't wrong. Although his level was extremely high, he had never tried to figure out how to use the earth element. He was purely relying on his instincts and imagination, and had never systematically learned how to use elemental power. To put it simply, the more daring one was, the more productive one was. To put it more simply, he was like a 3-year-old child holding a piece of plasticine, and the child could mold it into whatever shape he wanted. No matter what he molded, the plasticine was actually a C4 explosive, which could easily kill dozens or even hundreds of adult men if thrown into a crowd. That was pretty much it. He had a heavy weapon in his hand, and he could unleash the power of the heavy weapon, but it was really impossible for him to use it more intricately. Chen Guang was satisfied with the composite dome, the earth fury, the ambush formation, and even this giant god warrior. But in Lu Li's eyes, it was an extremely crude and primitive way of using elemental power. To put it simply, it was child's play. But he was still inexperienced, after all. It was already not bad that he could achieve this in such a short period of time. At the very least, it showed that he was very talented and smart. Just like the current giant god warrior. Although its power was unbelievably weak when compared to the endless divine realm, its level was actually quite high. As soon as the array beneath the giant soldier god's feet appeared, a shadow appeared out of thin air on its already extremely thick arms. This shadow spread from its fists all the way down, covering its entire body in an instant. It was a full body armor. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. If it weren't for the spikes on the guy's shoulders and back that ruined the image, the armor on this guy was clearly the Western-style armor that had left a painful memory for him. Yes, that's right. It was a sunny, no, a lonely and ruthless night. He was almost caught by Deputy Director Han in Teacher Zhuo's office. In the end, he hid in the former counselor's armor and luckily escaped the disaster, but he was almost suffocated to death. According to Lu Li, everything in the punishment realm was inextricably linked to the thoughts in the depths of his soul. He never expected that the night when he saw the void being refreshed would leave such a deep impression on him. On the other side, the moment the shadow of the armor of the giant god warrior appeared, it broke free from the giant net made of the heaven-swallowing living soil. The stone of history crashed into it again, but it could not shake the giant god warrior at all. As for the other ant-like monsters, they became insignificant ants scratching an itch on the body of the giant beast. The mysterious array below the colossus' feet granted the shadow of the armor, which seemed to carry a mysterious enhancement effect. Just like in the game, the strength and the defense ability of the colossus had been significantly improved. The cracks on the primordial star increased rapidly again. Elder Ward's life was hanging by a thread. At this moment, the ground shook, and an 8-story building not far from the giant god warrior exploded. A figure no different from an average person rose from the smoke and dust. Ward immediately felt the force that was about to crush him lighten. He turned his thoughts and saw the world's sand floating in the air, shrouded in mist. He cried out in ecstasy. "You're finally out. I'm saved." Chen Guang turned to look at the young man who suddenly appeared. He raised his brows and thought to himself, the saying that villains die because they talk too much seems to be an unchanging truth. In this realm of punishment, he had accidentally put himself in the role of a villain and said a few more words of nonsense. After summoning Obelisk's giant soldier god, he, as the strongest combat power, was obsessed with new moves and watching the giant soldier god show off. He did not expect that they actually had a trump card. It seems like they've been stalling for time. This young man does have some skills. In terms of power, this young man seemed to be on par with the destroyer he met previously, but his realm felt very similar to that of a chaos being. But this is not enough, far from enough. If I didn't become a marmalade exploder, I might really be defeated by this young man. As for now, saying it will only make you feel more despair. It's a pity that you can't even defeat my little brother. Even the real Earth Chaos being was cursed to death by the old man's protagonist Halo. What makes you think you can fight with me? The three elders of the World Destruction Guild were completely unaware. They felt that they finally had the chance to turn the tables. They were moved to tears. All the hard work was worth it. First, they used hundreds of years to adjust the elemental attributes of the newly born lives in the clan, hoping to cultivate the ultimate weapon with unlimited devouring ability. They finally succeeded 20 years ago. Then, they spent another 20 years to find the other 17 so-called titled warriors who were most compatible with the world's sand. In fact, it was just to fuse the power of these 18 people into the world's sand, completely activating his ability and obtaining the ultimate weapon. Now, it seemed that all the hard work was worth it. This was simply a perfect creation. There's hope for the revival of our holy clan. With this perfect ultimate weapon, what's there to be afraid of? The three elders of the World Destruction Guild couldn't be blamed for being frogs at the bottom of a well. In the hearts of ants, there seemed to be no difference between an elephant and a blue whale. Anyway, to them, they were all equally big and boundless. The world sand first looked at the giant god warrior, then turned his gaze to Qinguang who was hovering in midair. Unlike other frogs at the bottom of a well, as a frog standing outside the well, he could understand the gap between him and the other party. Chapter 8:11. Not to mention the so-called thief, Right Chin, he wasn't even a match for the tall stone monster below. However, in his memory, this person wasn't called Right Chin. He was called Qinguang. He wasn't a thief who stole the holy core, nor was he a great wizard of the Dolua world. He was the same as himself and everyone else here, a mortal. But why was he able to use such magic? Also, was the power in my body real or fake? If my power was real, then his magic should be real as well. If my power was fake, then his power should be fake too. But why was he able to kill the others so easily? Just how high was his level? What do I have to do to make him stop? Why must he be enemies with us, and why must we be enemies with him? What kind of irresolvable conflict is there between him and the world of destruction? Ever since he became sensible, this was the first time Sher Shah felt regret in his heart. He regretted never asking about the organization's matters in the past. He didn't know what enemies the organization had, and he couldn't understand why Huaxia would suddenly go to war with the world of destruction and send over a hunting team of over 50 people. Why was this young man called Qinguang here? Although he had become the ultimate weapon that the world of destruction holy tribe had high hopes for, Sher Shah's perplexity didn't lessen at all. Instead, it increased. He even started to think hard about how to make this man called Qinguang leave this place. It didn't matter even if he took his companions with him. If I know the cause and effect of this matter, I can probably think of a way to calm him down and have a good talk, right? Why did they have to kill each other? Any misunderstandings and conflicts can be resolved through communication. Sher Shah. Why are you still in a daze? Hurry up and do it. Walter suppressed his ecstasy when he saw that Sher Shah didn't save him immediately after coming out. He shouted desperately in his heart. On the other side, the giant god warrior continued to compress the primordial star after a short pause. If there was life on the primordial star, the people on this pitiful planet would be witnessing a scene of the end of the world that made them despair. Of course, this was impossible. With Ward's abilities, forming the shape of a planet was already his limit. If he could nurture life, he wouldn't be a lowly earth elemental life form. There was no other way. He could only save them first. Sher Shah threw away the messy thoughts in his mind and flew towards the giant soldier god. He didn't have the guts to provoke Chen Guang, who was floating in the sky. He could understand Chen Guang's current state of being a cat toying with a mouse. He knew that as long as Chen Guang was willing, everything would be over in an instant. As the world sand approached, the giant god warrior's pressure on the primordial star grew weaker. There was no other reason other than the fact that the ultimate weapon, the world sand, had restrained the power of the giant god soldier. Lad, if this is all you've got, it's not enough. Chen Guang didn't panic at all. Instead, he hoped that this person could stimulate more of the giant god soldier's potential. That way, he would be able to see more ways to use the earth element from the giant god soldier's counterattack. For example, the formation within a formation under its feet was very interesting. As a Grand Magus, it was embarrassing to learn how to use elemental power from his own summoned creature. Finally, the giant god soldier was obstructed again and again. Even though it didn't have any emotions, its dignity as a high-level creature was being belittled, and it subconsciously retaliated with more power. Chance. Run. Ward was overjoyed when he saw that the giant god warrior's attention was temporarily diverted. The side of the primordial star that was facing the giant god warrior spewed out boiling red magma in unison. It looked like an active volcano eruption during the destruction of a planet. Although the magma couldn't break through the giant god soldier's armor, it provided a considerable recoil force for the primordial star. The world sand, who was already prepared for battle, took the opportunity to speed up, and his body exploded. His body suddenly disappeared and turned into a cloud of yellow dust that filled the sky. He pounced at the giant god soldier's arms. In the blink of an eye, the giant god soldier's arms were covered in a thick layer of yellow sand. It looked like armor, but it was actually formed from the world sand's body. Not only did it not provide any protection, but it also forcefully absorbed the power from the giant god soldier's arms, solidifying them and restricting the giant god soldier's movements. The giant god soldier roared furiously, and the formation beneath its feet became even brighter. Outside the formation's boundary, a circle of complicated vein patterns that even Chen Guang couldn't understand appeared. This increased the diameter of the formation within the formation by another half. Accompanied by the sound of cracking, cracks first appeared on the binding armor that the world sand had transformed into. Then, it shattered with a loud bang. Like an exploding vase, it turned into countless fragments that scattered in all directions. The giant soldier god broke free from the binding again. However, the primordial star had already taken advantage of this delay and shot out like a missile with the recoil force of a volcanic eruption. Once Walter escaped, Elder Earth's stone of history and Elder Ni's heaven-devouring living soil hurriedly left the battle. As long as they didn't die and the endless reincarnation will wasn't broken, the others could be revived after death. The world-shattering Saint tribe would be invincible. The giant god soldier lifted its leg to give chase, but the world sand that had exploded into fragments disintegrated into dust in midair. Then, it pounced at its legs and condensed into a pair of shackles. It was strange. The world sand's true size was no different from an ordinary person, but after disintegrating into dust, the weight of the sand was much larger than a human's. The feet of the giant god were blocked, and it staggered a little. When it shattered the shackles again, the three elders had already fled far away. No one knew what they did, but after they escaped, they smashed the ground together and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. With a thought, Chen Guang grasped the three's escape route. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They thought that he wouldn't be able to do anything if they hid underground. How stupid. Forget it, it's time to end this. Chen Guang gave an order to the Colossus in his heart. Kill everyone here and get out of here. It was evident that the summoned creature couldn't understand a single word Chen Guang said, but it could understand its owner's impatience. It immediately responded by turning around and sprinting towards the hiding spot of the primordial star that Walter had transformed into. The world sand wrapped around his feet again, but this time it was broken off even faster. No one knew what the Colossus god used, but with every step it took, a six-pointed star formation would appear where its feet touched the ground. The Colossus god was getting closer and closer to Walter. The world sand's figure gradually appeared, and he looked at the approaching giant in despair. He had already tried his best. However, the disparity between their strengths was too great, and he couldn't absorb the earth elemental power of this stone giant at all. Even if he used all his strength, it was all in vain. Even if he could occasionally obtain some power from the other party was an endless and bottomless pit. Everything was futile. Sher Shah looked up in despair. It was just a summoned creature, and it already made him feel so powerless. How strong was Chen himself? The ultimate weapon, who was regarded as the last hope of the world-shattering holy tribe, actually felt no different from the others in despair. If he could, he wanted to fly up to the sky and stand in front of Chen. He wanted to tell him what he had said to the others earlier. He wanted to tell him that he had been tricked too, that he was not a magician, and that this was all an illusion. We are all humans. Unfortunately, Obelisk's giant divine weapon did not give him the slightest chance to catch his breath. If Patriarch Ward died and the array was broken, in the next moment, none of the clansmen who had been attacking the Bluestone giant in vain from beginning to end would survive. This was so painful. He indeed didn't have deep feelings for these killers in the world-shattering holy tribe. But after all, many of them had grown up with him. Although he wasn't on good terms with many of them, they were still his partners. If he could, he really didn't want to lose a so-called partner, even if he didn't approve of these people's lifestyle and motives as killers. The world Sand knew that perhaps he shouldn't be so indecisive, but he had no choice. There's no other way. I can only fight like this, right? The world Sand clenched his teeth, and his whole body exploded again. But this time, he didn't attack the Colossus god like a moth flying into a flame. Instead, he turned into smoke and dust that scattered to the ground. The boundless yellow sand spread out in all directions with him as the center, and the sky seemed to be covered in a thick fog. In the next moment, the yellow sand fell to the ground again, and the ground began to undulate like the waves of the sea. Then, it gathered together again, and a giant that was even bigger than the Colossus god rose from the ground and blocked in front of the Colossus god. Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. Previously, you had been fighting against my Colossus god in the form of sand, and I couldn't find your body and crystal core even after several counterattacks. Now that you took the initiative to condense into a form, you're just seeking your own death. Facing this even bigger giant, the Colossus god didn't dodge or avoid. It waved its fist, and on the tip of the fist, a disc-shaped formation with a diameter of about 6 meters appeared, glowing with a golden glow. With a loud bang, the fist of the Colossus god hit the chest of the mud giant that was transformed by the world sand. Chen Guang, who had been playing tricks in the sky, suddenly flicked his finger. A ray of black light shot out from his fingertip and hit the head of the mud giant. After being hit by 2 attacks, the mud giant first stiffened, and then it suddenly disintegrated. The Colossus god pulled its hands to the sides and completely disintegrated. It lifted its leg and stepped through the disintegrated body of the mud giant. It didn't slow down and continued to charge towards where Walter was hiding. As for Chen Guang, he was looking at the light red crystal core floating in midair. Was this the ultimate weapon of the world-shattering Saint tribe? It was still so weak. Sigh, I thought it could cause me some trouble. However, he didn't gain nothing from this period of dawdling. At least, the punch that the Colossus god threw just now allowed him to understand another way to use the earth element. The magic formation on the fist of the Colossus god represented an extremely strong vibration. The moment the mud giant was hit, the vibration spread throughout its entire body and completely disintegrated. That was why the destroyer ability that he used during the last hit was able to succeed so easily. This ability was a bit like the tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, of the white beard in One Piece. As expected, the elemental path was broad and profound. As long as one found the appropriate way to use it, one would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort in battle. Damn! What the hell? He recovered so quickly. Suddenly, his pupils constricted. The originally dead world-shattering sand actually turned into a huge mud giant again and stood in front of the Colossus god. Looking at this obviously much weaker but still unyielding mud giant, Chen Guang felt a headache coming on. It wasn't that he couldn't deal with this guy. It was purely because in comparison, this so-called strongest warrior of the world-shattering saint tribe was more like an unkillable main character in novels and mangas. He had a firm belief. In order to protect his race, he didn't hesitate to use his last drop of blood. Even if he was smashed into pieces, he wouldn't hesitate. He was smashed again and again. Even though he knew that the difference in strength between the two of them was so great that willpower couldn't make up for the difference, he still wouldn't give up. Damn, this guy is the male lead. His villainous setting was becoming more and more ingrained under the brilliant image of the other party. This isn't logical. I'm clearly here to exterminate the bandits. I represent justice. Don't even think of shaking my willpower. You're all murderous killers. All of you have to die. Chapter 8:12. This was too much torture for him. The endless reincarnation will seem to have its limits. For example, the strength of the final weapon lad had declined to a certain extent, and he couldn't maintain the same strength as the others. However, Chen Guang wasn't sure what the limits of the endless reincarnation will were. In any case, according to the Holy Grail's mission, he had to kill all the members of the world of destruction. Therefore, regardless of whether this final weapon lad was a good or bad person, he was a member of the world of destruction and had to die. The giant soldier god tore him apart once again and took a few more steps forward. The primordial star used a method similar to the Earth escape technique to escape into the distance. As for Elder 2 and Elder Ni, although they were extremely worried for Ward, they knew that they would not be able to pose a threat to the Bluestone Giant no matter what they did. The two of them could only express that they wanted to help, but were powerless to do so. They prayed in their hearts that the world of sand could display the strength of the final weapon and make this monster stop being so arrogant. That was probably the limit of what they could do now. Apart from that, the two elders ordered every member of the World of Shattering Saint clan not to retreat no matter what and to help the World of Sand stop the Bluestone Giant. However, after about a minute, their struggles were ultimately futile. Lioli silently looked at the second and third Bluestone Giant beasts that appeared after Obelisk's giant soldier god and covered her face awkwardly. This guy, he actually summoned the sky dragon of Osiris and the winged dragon god of the sun god. If it wasn't for the fact that this old lady was very knowledgeable and had a photographic memory, that she had heard people mention it when she was roaming the Sword Tower Circle as Jiang Luhua, and that she had glanced at this anime when she had nothing better to do after watching the web drama, she would really have thought that you could create such a cool and overbearing elemental summoning method like the three phantasmal gods. Alright, from a certain standpoint, you're indeed progressing at a godly speed. You're using the memories in your mind to forcefully bring out the ability of the Earth Paste Exploder in a way that's almost like a lucky draw. What a shortcut. For example, the giant soldier god, which had no consciousness of its own, could still rely on instinct to display many elemental manipulation methods that even Chen Guang couldn't understand. If the sky dragon and winged dragon god of the three Egyptian gods were as good as the giant divine weapon, shouldn't Chen Guang be praised as a genius? In addition, he had summoned the 3 Egyptian gods, so it wasn't embarrassing. He should thank the heavens that he didn't summon Big Head's son, Little Head's father, and Uncle Wang next door. But for him, who had yet to cross the threshold, this was the best way to quickly unleash his combat strength. It was completely possible that he could summon the Earth Elemental Gundam Z next time. For a moment, Liuli was confused. She didn't know whether she should praise this guy or scold him. No matter what Liuli was thinking right now, in the eyes of those who were not in the know, the 2 big monsters in the shape of dragons that were almost the size of colossi were truly dominating and overwhelming. But when those who were in the know saw this, they almost lost the will to scold them. That, team leader Shui, although I haven't watched Yu-Gi-Oh before, I've seen my cousin and a few of his classmates play this card. I'm not too familiar with the giant soldier god and the big golden bird, but I've seen the sky dragon card before. I heard that it's one of the most commonly used divine cards by the male protagonist in the original anime. The monster that Chief Chin created is exactly the same as the sky dragon in the card. Are the other 2 giant soldier god and winged dragon god exactly the same? Shui Lin nodded. He really didn't want to admit it, but it was the truth. Alright, they are indeed exactly the same. Don't ask me why, I don't know what's going on either. Perhaps the creators of the anime or these card games that we watched when we were young didn't really fabricate them out of thin air. Perhaps the myths and legends that we came into contact with in the past weren't all the imaginations of the ancients. Perhaps in a world that we don't know about, these myths and legends, or even the fictional things in the anime, all really exist. It's just that the creators of those works or stories, unknowingly, have their minds unconsciously aligned with the real gods in a certain world. Shui Lin admired himself when he said this. It was reasonable, convincing, open-minded, and far-sighted. This logic was simply flawless. Apart from not being able to explain why Chief Chin suddenly became a great mage who could summon mythical beasts, everything else was so harmonious. However, Chen Guang's Sky Dragon and Winged Dragon God weren't complete. He couldn't master their unique abilities like in the original anime. To put it bluntly, he could only master the power of the earth element at the moment. In short, his Winged Dragon God and Sky Dragon were essentially no different from the giant god soldiers. It was only their appearance that was different. Oh, right. Under his intentional emphasis, these 2 dragons could still fly. However, they didn't fly by flapping their wings. Instead, they were like a ruler controlling the earth, removing their own gravity and floating in the air. At this moment, Lu Fei was also in an awkward situation. She didn't know how to explain to Axean Qin and Wu Miaowan, who were overjoyed to see the demonic dragon from Western mythology. Who would have thought that this irresponsible great mage, Chen Guang, would actually gather the 3 mages from Yu-Gi-Oh! How many crispy noodle snacks did you eat when you were a kid playing card phones? You must have a grudge against card collecting. As for whether Right Chen's identity as a great mage was real or not. Was it possible that the great mage's magic could really summon the 3 mages? Lu Fei said, I don't care if others believe it or not, I'll pretend to believe it first. After the 3 mages appeared at the same time, Sher Shah, who was already in extreme despair, felt downright depressed. He was shredded by the giant god soldiers again, but on the other side, the Sky Dragon and Winged Dragon God were pouncing in the direction of the Great Elder and the Second Elder. The 3 Great Elders, who represented the highest echelons of the shattered Holy Clan, fled frantically into the distance like stray dogs. At this moment, they didn't dare to hope for the sacred core anymore. Even surviving was an extravagant hope. These people who had their memories fabricated by the punishment realm would never understand why Right Chen's power was so strong. He was even stronger than the elemental controller who had sealed the Holy Clan in this place according to the records. This didn't make sense at all. He had a power that didn't belong to this world at all. Sher Shah's body was reforged once again. However, this time, he didn't turn into the image of a mud giant like before. Instead, he returned to his normal human form and floated in the air in despair. He looked at the backs of the giant god soldiers, then turned to look at the backs of the sky dragon and winged dragon god. He was completely at a loss. He felt so powerless. He couldn't save anyone, he couldn't stop anyone, and he couldn't change anything. He had never been willing to kill people. However, before he killed his teacher, his hands had already stained more than 100 lives. He was different from the others. He had never carried out a mission, never left the training base, and never killed anyone outside the base. However, even those who died in his hands and were thrown into the dungeon with him, who knew if every single one of them deserved to die? Who knew if those people had lost their families and were thinking of them from afar? Today, he told the so-called shattered holy clan that they were all living in a pitiful lie. He wanted to wake them up and hope that they wouldn't commit suicide. However, no one believed in him. They believed in their memories even more. In their eyes, he was a coward who only knew how to run away. Perhaps he was also a lunatic. If he wasn't the only candidate, they would definitely give up on him and choose someone else without hesitation. Now, he had finally become the so-called ultimate weapon. Perhaps the blood of the world blade flowed in his body, or perhaps his soul resided in it. He finally made up his mind to protect this so-called shattered holy clan no matter what. If there was a chance, he also wanted to have a good talk with Qin Guang or the person called Right Qin. However, he still couldn't do anything until now. That person in the sky was too arrogant, and his summoned creatures were too powerful. He didn't even have a moment to breathe. Judging from his appearance, he didn't seem to be interested in talking to him on equal footing. In his eyes, people like him were like ants. In the distance, the 3 Egyptian gods had already pounced at the 3 elders' hiding spots. The giant soldier god stomped on the ground, and 2 dark green hexagram formations appeared under his feet once again. The primordial star was forcefully shaken out, and the giant soldier god gripped it tightly once more. The sky dragon landed on the ground and opened its mouth. White light flashed in its mouth that was full of fangs, and an extremely thick white beam of light shot out from its mouth. There was also a mysterious magic circle at the location where the beam of light came out from. Through the transformation of the magical formation, the earth elemental energy shot out from the sky dragon's mouth became the power of thunder. Qin Guang was shocked. It's here. Superconducting electric wave lightning cannon. One really wouldn't know without trying. The bolder a person was, the more productive he was. Although he didn't know how the sky dragon did it, it had definitely converted the earth elemental energy into thunder. The ground that was bombarded by the superconducting electric wave lightning cannon rapidly cracked open, and rays of white light emerged from the ground. The Great Elder's historical stone couldn't stay there any longer. He emerged from the ground in a sorry state and was about to escape when the sky dragon pounced on him with its wings spread open, and its claws pressed down on this large rock. The sky dragon's lightning cannon didn't stop, and it poured down on the historical stone like a waterfall. Qin Guang felt his hair stand on end, and he couldn't help but sympathize with the Great Elder. I don't know what you think, but I definitely wouldn't be able to endure being spat like a faucet. Alright, the other brother was in an even worse state. The winged divine dragon was the strongest existence among the 3 illusory gods, and it was spitting out golden flames. Elder Ni's mighty and tyrannical heaven-devouring living soil was currently trapped in a golden hexagram formation and couldn't break free. The winged divine dragon's golden flames were madly burning his body. This miserable scene reminded Qin Guang of the scene he had seen when he was a child in a small workshop. Of course, it wouldn't be wrong to call that lump of mud a brick if it was squared off. The 3 elders' miserable screams rang out one after another. The other monsters of the world-shattering holy tribe split into 3 groups and launched a suicidal attack on the 3 illusory gods. Extreme despair emerged in the hearts of every member of the world-shattering holy tribe. Chapter 8:13. No. Don't. Sha woke up from her momentary daze and saw the 3 elders struggling in vain before their deaths. With a loud boom, the primordial star was finally crushed by the giant divine soldier's arm and exploded. The giant divine soldier exerted strength in its arms and tossed the exploding primordial star into the sky. This round ball became the largest firework in history, exploding into a rain of fire and meteors. The dark green stone of history was poured down by the sky dragon's lightning power. Starting from the tip of the awl, it slowly turned into powder and quicksand. The huge green stone filled with the vicissitudes of history was shaved off bit by bit like a weathered rock worn down by time. Finally, the light from the lightning cannon dimmed, and only a pile of sand from the stone of history was left on the ground. It looked like a huge graveyard. The heaven-swallowing living soil struggled and twisted in the flames. Gradually, it stopped moving. Just as Chen Guang had imagined, it was burned into a piece of tile. The winged dragon god retracted its flames, lifted its golden dragon claw, and stomped on the tile, shattering it. The 2 huge endless reincarnation wheels magic formations in the sky and on the ground trembled violently due to the death of the 3 formation eyes. They flickered and were no longer stable. Cracks appeared in the natural system of the endless reincarnation wheel's magic formation. The golden rain of light and dense mist that had been rotating between heaven and earth suddenly paused. The world-shatterer monsters that had been dying and resurrecting while attempting to break through the 3 Egyptian gods didn't resurrect as quickly as before. Although they still showed signs of resurrection, their bodies were stuck halfway through their resurrection process and couldn't continue. These monsters that were on the brink of death struggled painfully on the ground. Their forms were distorted, and it was unbearable to look at them. Chen Guang took a deep breath. It was time to end everything. Regardless of their identities as members of the world-shattering holy tribe, their past assassins, their sorrowful mission targets, or the repeated provocation of Huaxia by this former terrorist organization, they had to die. Chen Guang extended his right palm. What surged in his palm was the purest earth element power of the great earth explosion. With his palm facing the sky, the ball-shaped earth elemental energy soared into the sky, growing larger and larger in the air before smashing heavily into the 6-pointed star array in the sky. He flipped his right palm again, and the second earth elemental power of the marmalade bomb appeared. This round ball fell to the ground like a nuclear bomb. In the sky, thunder exploded, and the hexagram star array exploded. Even the clouds in the sky dispersed. Looking up, one could only see the deep blue sky, and behind the blue was the endless universe. On the ground, a mushroom cloud rose from the massive tremors. Waves of smoke and dust rose into the air, destroying everything in its path, including the magic arrays on the ground. The deafening noise made everyone's ears buzz. If it weren't for the dome and the dungeon specially reinforced by Chen Guang to protect Xie Qin, Xuelin, and the others, they might have really killed their own people as Lu Li had said before. When the tremors gradually subsided and the smoke and dust slowly dispersed, the originally lush Beryl Mountain range had become desolate as far as the eye could see. Although it wasn't a scene of devastation, it was still barren. Only the yellow mountain range and the desolate land remained. Not even a blade of grass was left. Ouyang Tianqing, who had been hiding underground, was shivering. Chen Guang's attack had finally destroyed the last surveillance camera. All the surveillance screens in front of him had turned into white snowflakes. However, his mind was filled with Chen Guang's destructive attack. He couldn't get over it for a long time. People said that he could destroy the sky with a flip of his hand and shake the earth with a flip of his palm. How could a human be so powerful? How did Chen Guang do it? He was definitely not a world breaker, but the power he displayed was far stronger than the world breaker holy tribe. It was beyond comprehension. Compared to him, the so-called world-shattering holy tribe was like a grain of light trying to compete with the sun and moon. So, the ordinary Chen Guang in my eyes is actually such a powerful person. I'm really lucky to be able to live until now. I'm also really lucky that I've never fought him face to face. Otherwise, I can't imagine how tragic my death would be. Xuelin and the other members of the special task force from the Guangding General Headquarters also had their mouths wide open. They couldn't say a word for a long time. Enchanting held on to the edge of the dome and looked outside. She murmured, "What kind of existence is this grand sorcerer? Why do I feel that the power of his magic is not much different from a nuclear bomb?" Although she came from a martial arts sect and didn't have much contact with modern things, Enchanting was obviously someone who was very good at learning new things. Ever since she came out of seclusion, she had only been the president of the China Escort Association for a short period of time. For the rest of the time, she had been following Chen Guang around. Apart from helping Chen Guang complete his work as the deputy director of the Guangding General Headquarters, she spent most of her time surfing the internet or meditating. Of course, she knew about nuclear bombs. It was just that her energy was limited and she was a little late. Otherwise, she would have gone to university to study quantum mechanics or something. Wu Miaowan was stunned. That's so powerful. I want to learn. Enchanting turned around and glared at her. Really? He's going to he like that? Wu Miaowan didn't understand. What does he mean? He, it means he. Enchanting rolled her eyes and ignored her. On the other hand, Lu Fei wasn't the same as the other two. She wasn't bothered by Chen Guang's final attack. Instead, she was looking at the 3 Egyptian gods that were slowly dissipating. For some reason, she felt that something was amiss. Something was really wrong. Chen Guang slowly landed on the ground. The elemental cores of thousands of dead monsters from the World Shatterer floated up from all directions and gathered at his position. It looked as cool as the game characters in Devil May Cry absorbing the souls of monsters after killing them. The densely packed specks of light gathered in his palm and formed a huge ball of light in front of him, floating in the air. 3 of the balls of light were particularly bright. They were the elemental cores left behind by the 3 elders of the World Shatterer. Chen Guang slowly stretched out his right palm and aimed it at the ball of light. According to international practice, he was going to have a big meal again. No. I beg you. Wait. Right at this moment, a weak moan came from in front of him. Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. There was actually a survivor of the World Shatterer who was lucky enough to survive his attack. He glanced over and wasn't so surprised. It was the so-called ultimate weapon of the World Shatterer. However, this person's body had shrunk to the size of a palm. He looked like a funny clay figurine, like a clay doll made from handicrafts. This clay figurine was standing about 2 meters in front of him. If his eyes weren't playing tricks on him, he should be looking at him with a pleading expression. At this moment, Chen Guang smiled and asked, "Wait a minute. Do you think I will let them go? Moreover, they are already dead. They are completely dead. Isn't it too late for you to plead for them now?" Shi Sha was extremely weak now. Just now, Chen Guang's 2 destructive palms had destroyed the countless reincarnation wheels and killed all the monsters of the World Shatterer. As for Shi Sha himself, as the strongest warrior in the history of the World Shatterer Holy Tribe and the ultimate weapon that carried all the hopes of the World Shatterer Holy Tribe, he barely managed to survive the attack. Besides this, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't protect anyone and was severely injured. He stood in front of Chen Guang in this ridiculous state, trying to plead for Chen Guang's mercy. Unfortunately, Chen Guang didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for the assassins of the World Shatterer. Moreover, according to the requirements of his mission, if he didn't kill all the members of the World Shatterer, he would die. How could a hunter sacrifice his sympathy for a jackal and get himself killed? Chen Guang's heartless reply left Sher Shah at a loss. That's right. They were all dead. Why should he plead for them? Although these assassins were his comrades, with the crimes they had committed, it was reasonable for them to be turned into ashes. They only had themselves to blame for ending up like this. No, I'm not pleading for mercy. I just want to tell you something. Sher Shah changed his words. Chen Guang's interest was piqued. His hands didn't stop moving. The crystal nuclei of the monsters of the World Shatterer were rapidly converted into pure energy. He absorbed them to strengthen his body. At the same time, he looked down at the little mud man. Oh. What do you think? But don't try to bargain with me. No matter what you want to tell me, I can't let you live. You have to die. Sher Shah smiled. It's okay. I don't expect to live. But I have to tell you. There's a huge secret in this world. Chen Guang's eyes lit up. He became more interested. Let's hear it. The true identity of our World Shatterer isn't these monsters that can turn into mud. We are all real living people. We are also from Earth. Not this ridiculous Dolua world. As for you, Chen Guang, although I don't know your situation, I only know that you were originally called Chen Guang. But you are definitely not some ridiculous great magister. You are just an ordinary person. Do you think you are invincible? Do you think you can sit back and relax after eliminating this so-called World Shatterer Holy Clan? Do you think you can take that so-called Earth Saint core and become the strongest in this ridiculous Dolua world? This is ridiculous. Whether it's you, the so-called 3 sacred race grand elders, or my companions who committed suicide in order to turn me into your final weapon, or the world-breaker assassins who are being ground to dust by you, you've all been deceived. You are all living in a dream. Ha ha ha, you didn't expect it, right? You are actually just a chess piece in the hands of an unknown terrifying existence. You are like a toy. Even your life is fabricated by that existence. Sher Shah smiled delightedly. He was going to die anyway. He couldn't do anything. Anyway, that invincible existence that transcended the world had set one of the parts of Right Chen's life, which was to completely destroy the World Shatterer. Whether it was himself or the other people in the World Shatterer, they were just a part of Right Chen's long life. They were destined to be his stepping stones from the beginning. This realization made him feel despair. But even if he died, he had to die with value. As long as his reminder could wake Right Chen up a little, make him realize that there was a big, hateful hand controlling everything like a marionette, and make him doubt this world a little, then his death would be meaningful. Chen Guang. Chapter 8:14. Damn it, although I don't know why your memory wasn't completely erased, and you still remember that you're really an assassin, and can even think that other people's memories have been tampered with, but you reminded the mastermind himself that there's another mastermind behind all of this. As the big boss of the mastermind, the old man felt slightly out of place. Alright, it's a bit of a tongue twister, but the truth is like this. You look like you can really see through the phenomenon and see the essence. You look really proud, like you're really a prophet. But I don't know why, but I just want to laugh. Big brother, the terrifying existence that you're talking about, I'm sorry, that's also the old man himself. No matter how bad it is, it's also the heavenly holy grail in the old man's hand. You look like this, your whole body is full of angles to roast, and I don't know where to start. Awkward, extremely awkward. Sher Shah saw Chen Guang's uncomfortable look as if he had eaten a fly, and thought that his words were effective, so he smiled even more relieved. Look at your stunned look, you're stunned, right? Chen Guang nodded silently. That's right, I'm stunned. You're also a very smart and powerful person. I think you should have realized something by now. Very good, in this case, I can die without regrets. Everything that happened to me from yesterday to today is too unbelievable, too dreamy. In the past, I heard my good brother, Shi Ren, talk to me about a role-playing RPG game in this world. I'm thinking, including this so-called Doluo world, and the real world outside of us, could it be a game in that invincible existence's computer? And you, Chen Guang, you're very lucky or unlucky to be the main character in the game, and the rest of us are even more unlucky to be the supporting NPCs, but no matter what, this game will be cleared one day. At that time, the game will either be stored in a corner of the computer and gradually forgotten by the owner, kept for a long time by the owner, or it might be deleted by the owner due to the limited capacity of the hard disk. Of course, the concept of my hard disk isn't the real hard disk on Earth. The more Shi Sha spoke, the more serious he became. His expression revealed a sense of transcendence, as if he had seen through the world of mortals. He was not trying to survive, but simply wanted to tell the truth of the world that he had seen to this protagonist who, in his eyes, could break the truth. Chen Guang's smile grew brighter and brighter. He felt that the conversation was very interesting, especially since he understood everything. It was really fun to watch the little clay man gnash his teeth while talking, but even his starting point was ridiculously wrong. Yes, I understand. The hard disk you mentioned is just a metaphor. If it's a god, they wouldn't be using a hard drive, but some strange container, such as a cup. Shi Sha nodded and looked up at Chen Guang. She had a look as if he was worth teaching. Water cup. That's an interesting way of putting it. Alright, whatever you think, it doesn't matter. I'm not begging for mercy by telling you all this, nor am I trying to make a final struggle. I just want to say what's in my heart. It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. I, Shi Sha, am a good person. No matter how you see me, I'm still a good person. Even if I'm an NPC, I'm still a good NPC. My dream must be very funny to you, and it's world peace. Other than killing each other, there are countless ways to get along with each other. I hope that perhaps you, the protagonist, can break free from the control of that existence one day, and let this game of ours turn from a virtual game into a real existence. For every life, find a more merciful way to live, and don't be manipulated mercilessly by him anymore. Although this little clay man had been acting very funny, Chen Guang was a little shocked by his even funnier view of the world. This kind of words actually came out of the mouth of an assassin organization. It was as if I heard God laughing at you and me. Our conversation is 2F*King funny. What are they talking about? Wu Miaowan asked with great interest. In the distance, Enchanting and the other two were still trapped in the dome, unable to get out. Although the edge of the dome appeared to be empty, there was an invisible layer of invisible power enveloping it, preventing the impact from the outside from hurting the people inside, and the people inside could not even think about getting out. Enchanting shrugged. How would I know? Maybe the killer who shattered the world came to his senses when he was about to die. He regretted all the wrong things he had done in the past. But it doesn't make any sense. When a bad guy is about to die, he becomes a good guy. I've seen this kind of drama on TV a lot. What a joke. When the bad person repents, can the people he killed be resurrected? If an apology is useful, why do we need the police? Lu Fei also nodded. Enchanting is right. Although I'm not very clear about the situation of the shattered world, I have indeed heard about this organization. For a long time in the past, many rich people in China changed their expressions at the mention of them. I heard that they have also caused a great impact on the stability of China's domestic security. Enchanting nodded. Sister Lu Fei, you're really right. They have caused trouble for Chen Guang more than once. He deserves it. Sigh. Mr. Director, you should hurry up and run away. Enchanting yelled in Chen Guang's direction as she yelled the latter half of her sentence. On the other side, Xuelin and the other members of the task force, including the swordmaster Xian Yuan and the beautiful woman Wu Qingming, all looked in the direction of Chen Guang with a complicated expression. They were further away, and only Xuelin and the two sect leaders could clearly see the little doll-like person standing in front of Chen Guang. If it wasn't for Enchanting's shout, they would have almost forgotten that the young man in front of them was the current director of the Guangding General Headquarters, and also their immediate superior. At this time, Chen Guang didn't look like a person from Earth at all. He was completely like a peerless master living in a fantasy novel. His anger could shock the world and control all lives. Even though Chen Guang didn't deliberately raise his aura, the aura that belonged to the king of the earth element was involuntarily emitted from his body. Even ordinary life forms would have a lingering fear of him. Moreover, this state would continue to rise as he continued to absorb the elemental crystal cores released by the dead monsters. At this moment, his superior aura had already reached its peak. Only Enchanting and the others who had followed him since the beginning were able to adapt to it. Xuelin and the others, even though they were watching from afar, subconsciously felt fear in their hearts. On the other side, after being reminded by Enchanting, Chen Guang also felt that he had unconsciously delayed some time for the little clay man. What you said is very interesting, and I'm also very surprised, but you should be on your way. Shi Sha didn't show any expression of fear. Instead, he looked at Chen Guang calmly, slowly opened his arms, closed his eyes, and said in a deep voice, I hope what I said can help you in any way. Chen Guang was a little unhappy. Why was this guy's reaction completely different from what he had imagined? Who wouldn't be afraid of death? But this guy was completely detached from the world and put on a look of seeking death. This made his villain setting more and more deeply rooted. This was very unscientific, and it made him very uncomfortable. Aren't you destroying the old man's sense of accomplishment when he completed the punishment realm? You lunchbox NPC, you're completely uncooperative. No, your words don't help me at all. Everything you said just now, I know better than you. The supreme existence that you said controls everything in the unseen world and fabricates all of your memories is actually me. Chen Guang still spoke too much. As he spoke, he slowly raised his right hand and stretched it forward. The power that was glowing with black light was faintly discernible on his 5 fingertips. He didn't want any more accidents. No matter how detached and calm this young man was, it couldn't change the fact that he was the core member of Broken World. Don't try to use your act of being a good person to shake my will. My mission also requires me to kill you. Either you die, or I die, there is no third choice. Shi Sha was stunned. He raised his head to look at Chen Guang, but he saw a strange smile on Chen Guang's face. His pupils grew bigger and bigger, and he slowly opened his mouth as if he wanted to scream. But he couldn't move anymore, and he couldn't speak. The power that surged out from Chen Guang's 5 fingers had completely locked him up. Good NPC. World peace. Get along well. Live mercifully. You're simply making me laugh. You're an assassin whose hands are stained with blood. I can smell the thick stench of blood from your soul. You've killed no less than any of the Broken World assassins here. You're making a fool out of me. But it's useless. You're the most cunning Broken World assassin I've ever seen. I find it inconceivable that you can retain your true memories, but this can't change the fact that you deserve to die. That's right, no matter how much Shi Sha looked like a Buddha who had an epiphany, Chen Guang would only feel that he was cunning and hateful. Die. 5 streaks of earth elemental energy stood at the peak. Even in the endless God world, they might be the purest and most profound earth elemental energy in history. Like twisting a hemp rope, he twisted it fiercely. Sher Shah smiled bitterly. Retribution. This is retribution. He didn't have the right to blame anyone. He didn't have the right to complain about the unfairness of fate. Ever since he had his memories, he had been living in this base. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, his hands were stained with blood in order to survive. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, he still lived until now by eating the money that Broken World earned by killing people. Since he grew up eating steamed buns stained with blood, the resentment of countless dead souls had also merged into his soul along with their blood. It was impossible for him to become the kind of good person that he wanted to be in this life. All his struggles were meaningless. His body that was made of quicksand didn't feel any pain, but the pressure and tearing from the depths of his soul made him feel heart-wrenching pain. His consciousness gradually blurred, and his complete soul was being stripped away bit by bit, like ice and snow being exposed to the scorching sun on a hot summer day. Chapter 8:15. Everything is over for you. If you have a next life, remember to reincarnate as a good person. In the haze, Sher Shah could vaguely hear Chen Guang's cold snort. His body had completely shattered, but he nodded in his consciousness. Yes. Thank you. If there is a next life, I want to be a truly good person. Sher Shah's voice gradually deepened. This soul that had suffered so much finally disappeared completely. Chen Guang lowered his head and looked at the exceptionally bright fruit candy in his palm. He couldn't speak for a long time. This fruit candy was about the size of a glass bead. It was bigger than all the crystal cores from before. But what really caught his attention was the drop of water beside it. This was a tear. The faraway punishment world was already gradually shattering. The clouds and the deep blue sky behind it, which he didn't know if they were real or not, turned into pieces like broken glass. The Barrow Mountain Range, which was so tall that it reached the clouds, started to collapse bit by bit. Before the rubble fell to the ground, it turned into invisible powder and then turned into the purest energy, completely dissipating without leaving a trace. This fake punishment world that was created to test him had completed its mission. It was going to disappear completely. Chen Guang didn't care about the world that was changing. He just looked at the drop of water and the crystal core in his palm blankly. He took a deep breath. Forget it. He had already killed it. Anyway, it was destined that he couldn't coexist with the shattered world. Whether it was his punishment world or everything else in the shattered world, they were all gone. He clenched his fist tightly. The last bloodline of the shattered world Saint tribe, the crystal core formed by the final weapon, Sher Shah, disintegrated completely. It turned into the purest energy and was absorbed by him like all the other crystal cores in the past. The speed at which the punishment world was collapsing increased. It spread from afar to where Chen Guang and the others were standing. Xan Qin was so shocked that she shouted, "The end of the world is coming." Lu Fei placed all her attention on Chen Guang. She comforted, "It's okay. Look at how calm he is." Wu Miaowan nodded as well. The great Magus director didn't say anything. "Don't be nervous. You'll be fine." Xuelin and the others, who were further away, were not so calm. From the moment they left Wutua town, they had become pitiful captives. First, he was restrained by the merciless and unreasonable monsters. Then, he was locked up in the dungeon. He thought he was going to die for sure, but the director who only took his salary and did not work suddenly appeared. Admittedly, he had shown that he was very good at fighting in the past and had some abilities that ordinary people could not reach, but this time, the director had become even more terrifying than a monster. Well, it seemed that although the director had become a character in a fantasy novel, at least he still remembered them and could distinguish between friend and foe. Although he didn't know how he did it, it was true that he protected everyone unscathed during that terrifying attack. Xuelin and the others were only frightened, but they did not suffer any real harm. But this time, they really couldn't sit still. They couldn't be like Enchanting and the other two, who could only watch helplessly as the world around them shattered like glass. It might not be accurate to describe their faces as ashen. They were on the verge of collapse. Xuelin rushed to the side of the dungeon cage and shouted at the top of her voice, "Director! Director! Go!" In the face of such a terrible catastrophe as the destruction of the world, Xuelin really didn't know how Qinguang could save them, who were doomed to die. She could only think of waking up Qinguang and telling him not to be distracted anymore. At least he had to live. The current director was a god. Having such a god was a great blessing to the whole of China. The other people in the task force were even worse than Xuelin. Even the well-trained agents who had experienced hundreds of battles couldn't keep calm in this situation. Qinguang slowly raised his head and looked at Xuelin and the others. He put away the sudden thoughts in his mind, floated to their side, and said softly, "Everyone, I am Doluo World's great magus, right, Qinguang himself. You don't have to panic, this is just a small matter." "Ah. Small matter." Xuelin stared blankly at Qinguang. Just behind him, the edge of the shattered and collapsed world swept over like a wave in a tsunami. Everything was destroyed, but it was silent. Qinguang nodded, "Yes, it's a small matter." As soon as his voice fell, the shattered world finally crashed through the dungeon where everyone was. Whether it was the strong-willed Xuelin or the two sect leaders with superb martial arts, their minds were all shocked, and they completely lost consciousness in an instant. On the other side, Enchanting and the others also suffered the same fate. Only Qinguang still stood proudly from the beginning to the end, watching everything around him shatter into pieces. When everything around him completely disintegrated into the void, the world began to regenerate little by little from his feet and spread into the distance. When everything stopped, Qinguang looked at the setting sun in the distance, and then looked at the many task force members lying on the ground around him. Not far away, Enchanting and the other two were also lying there in deep sleep. Feeling the inexhaustible power of the earth explosion in his body receding like the tide, he felt a vague sense of loss in his heart. In a place further away, thousands of world shatterer killers who should have completely disappeared were neatly sitting cross-legged on the ground. However, these people who seemed to be meditating were completely silent, and there was no heartbeat. They were dead. They died extremely abruptly. There were no wounds on their bodies, and there were no internal problems in their bodies, not even a cold. But these people had no signs of life, as if their souls were hollowed out. Qinguang sighed. This time, it was really over. The electronic voice of the heavenly Holy Grail sounded in his heart. "Congratulations, Redeemer. World of Punishment completed. Survival confirmed. Destroy the world quest completion rate, 100%. Rescue the hostages quest completion rate, 98. 19%. World of Punishment overall completion rate, 99. 39%. Qinguang let out a long sigh of relief. The second World of Punishment was really very different. In addition to the unprecedented difficulty of the mission and the unprecedented scale of the mission world, there were also more people involved than ever before, and the abilities he obtained in the mission world were also more powerful and real. Although the time was short, the degree of influence he had on the so-called soul world was actually far greater than when he was in the Sea of Time. After the mission was completed, the Heavenly Holy Grail actually gave an evaluation of the degree of completion for the first time. It was quite a pity that he didn't get a 100%, but 99. 39% seemed pretty good. No matter what, it should at least be a level of A++, right? As expected, the heavenly Holy Grail immediately gave him another piece of good news. Due to the excellent completion of the mission reward will be issued immediately. Redeemer, please prepare to receive it. All the hard work was worth it. It actually directly issued the reward, and not another unlucky reward world. Although the old man was now bursting with confidence, he had just completed such a big mission, he was still quite tired. Of course it was good to be able to relax a bit. Redeemer, please make a wish, the heavenly Holy Grail can grant you one wish. Chen Guang crazily roared in his heart, my wish is, to be able to grant me 10 wishes. Redeemer, please be a bit more serious, don't act cute, the scope of the wish is 2 heavenly Holy Grails reward limit. Sigh, this Grail really isn't open-minded at all. We're all on the same side, be a bit more generous. Seeing that this guy couldn't stop acting cute, Liuli couldn't help but shout in his heart, save your strength. Your reward is given to you by the Bell of Fate. The Bell of Fate handles matters fairly and rigorously, there is absolutely no room for bargaining. If you really want to ask for more, then you want to steal the favor of fate for the 3rd time, do you want to provoke the world of punishment that is 100 times stronger? Accept it for me. Chen Guang's whole body quivered, he hurriedly said like a machine gun, all right, I'm still short 24 muscles for the special training of my whole body, since the reward is 2 heavenly chains, it's not too much to let my fleshly body reach perfection, right? Reward distribution begins, please pay attention to receive it. You're sending it by express delivery, pay attention to receive it. On the other side, Lu Mingwe said to Liuli without rhyme or reason, Sister Liuli, I think what you said just now is wrong, if the Bell of Fate is really completely fair, this time Chen Guang should be dead, but not only did this guy turn misfortune into blessing, he even picked up a big bargain, this is clearly not normal. Liuli was stunned at first, then she rolled her eyes, you ask me, who do I ask? Even the heavens of the endless God realm don't know why. Chapter 8:16. Chen Guang originally wanted to run to Axe and Qin and the other 2 to check if there was anything wrong with their bodies. Of course, he would never admit that he wanted to take advantage of them. However, the mission reward came without giving him any time to wait. In an instant, his whole body stiffened. This was different from when he received benefits from the heavenly Holy Grail in the past. This time, both his physical body and soul remained in the real world. However, Chen Guang could clearly sense that the power of the Holy Grail that enveloped the entire world was rapidly gathering towards the cup in his hand from afar. At this time, someone would definitely ask, didn't I leave the Holy Grail at the equipment base station when I entered the punishment realm? Why is it in my hand now? Chen Guang thought that this was a good question. With the old man's many years of experience, this cup either grew legs and ran over, or it was sent over by Azure when she had nothing better to do. Forget it, this was not important anyway. Don't worry about the details. In addition, when the heavenly Holy Grail absorbed the power of the Holy Grail, the so-called distance was not as simple as the place that could not be seen by the eyes on Earth. With Earth as the center, the range was constantly expanding. The power of the Holy Grail that was dispersed throughout the solar system, the Milky Way, the galaxy, and even the entire universe were all gathering at this moment. For the power of the Holy Grail, it seemed that the rules of time that belonged to it were not too consistent with normal time. It was countless times faster than the speed of light. Even if it gathered from the distant edge of the universe, it did not seem to take many seconds. It seemed that the real world that had merged with the real world was also about to retreat. While waiting for the heavenly Holy Grail to absorb the power of the Holy Grail again, Chen Guang let out a long sigh of relief. He did not want the entire Earth to be merged with the real world like this forever. Previously, the tremor Earth had already caused him to be in a mess. If he had not used the faith points to exchange for the pawn to take the crucial step, he would have died long ago. If other people bumped into these monsters, the troops would not be able to do anything. God knew what would happen to Earth if the real world did not retreat. At that time, he could happily walk on the road, sing songs, and get ready to eat hot pot. If an elemental creature suddenly appeared in front of him, he would be in big trouble. "You're really optimistic," Lioli suddenly said in his heart. Lumingua's cold laughter also sounded from the side. This is too much of a villain. In short, I'll give you 2 words, hee. What were the 2 of them doing? Chen Guang was quite puzzled. At the same time, his body began to stiffen. The reward package from the punishment realm was about to be fulfilled. He didn't understand the mechanism behind the power of the Holy Grail at all. He couldn't feel anything in his body either. He simply couldn't move. However, Chen Guang was not worried that he would be fooled. The heavenly Holy Grail never fooled anyone. Something as important as the reward could be handed over to the professionals. He just had to be confident and boldly win. However, the reactions of Luli and Dreamy made him feel very unhappy. He had a bad premonition in his heart, as if he had been schemed against. It was very strange. Can you stop beating around the bush? Can't you be more sincere? Sorry, I'm a goddess, not a human. Sorry, this cute sister is also a goddess, not a human. Oh, no. You guys are making me feel very uneasy. What's going on? Luli said very casually, look at how nervous you are. It's just a small matter. You're the savior of the heavenly Holy Grail. With your identity and status, this small matter is not even worth mentioning. Don't force me to use my ultimate move. My virgin urine is already unbearably thirsty. You shameless bastard. Forget it, I'll tell you. This time is different from the last. The fusion of the real world and your real world can't be undone. Luli really either didn't speak, or she scared people to death when she did. Lord Guang indicated that she was joking with him. Stop fooling around, we're talking business. Dear Mingguo said, but Sister Luli is talking to you about this, which is also the business you want to know. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't move, he would have probably jumped 3 feet high. This joke is too big. A little explanation. Why? I don't understand. You have to understand even if you don't understand, because it has already become the truth. Don't think that the heavenly Holy Grail is still absorbing the power of the Holy Grail, but you also know that ever since you experienced the world of punishment for the first time, the power of the Holy Grail has never completely disappeared. It still exists in this world, but it has become extremely thin to the extent that even you, the owner of the Holy Grail, can't sense it. Chen Guang didn't give up and said, then shouldn't it be the same this time? Luli gave Chen Guang a super vivid analogy. If you put a grain of salt in the water will be tasteless. But if you throw a handful into the water, can the water still be drunk? The first time, the degree of fusion of the real world wasn't high. It's like putting 2 pieces of plasticine of different colors together. The first time, it was just a simple touch, but the second time, you used force and crushed the 2 pieces of plasticine together. Can they still be separated? Now, the Holy Grail is indeed gathering power again, but the power of the Holy Grail that was left in the outside world this time has exceeded the limit of the stability and balance of your world. The final result is that your world will no longer be pure. The real world and your real world will be inseparable. Chen Guang's eyes widened, and he couldn't say a word for a long time. Yes, just as you can imagine, the loophole has been opened. The power of the elements and various kinds of divine powers will gradually invade your world, especially here, this planet. Because of the existence of you and the Holy Grail, the power of the Holy Grail near this planet will be relatively dense. Changes will definitely happen, but I'm not sure when it will happen. Maybe it will be tomorrow, maybe it will be next year, of course, it could also be 100 years later. In short, when the quantitative change accumulates to a certain extent and reaches a qualitative change, this irreversible change will suddenly descend upon you with a loud bang. Chen Guang took a deep breath. It seemed like he was really going to become the sinner that brought about the end of the world. What will happen when the time comes? Dear Cry interrupted, Sister Luli and I aren't sure either. But based on my guess, it might not only be elemental creatures. For example, a three-headed hellhound or something might suddenly descend. This is also not too accurate. Lord Guang shivered. Don't scare me. It sounds so scary. Dear Cry continued, of course, it's also possible that the ordinary people in this world of yours, because of the differences in their physiques, start to absorb different divine powers bit by bit and obtain some supernatural abilities, gene unlocking and so on. It's also possible that a space-time hole suddenly appears and they fall into another small world or something. Anyway, whatever strange and incomprehensible things happen, you just have to blame it on the heavenly Holy Grail and the real world. Lord Guang's face was ashen. Damn it. I don't have the ability of the red sauce exploder now. This way, my protagonist aura will collapse. And don't say such a tragic thing so casually. Luli laughed. No, don't panic. This is another situation. Originally, perhaps the power of the Holy Grail wasn't dense enough to cause a change, but because a certain someone obtained an ability that he shouldn't have, his body's attraction to the power of the Holy Grail exceeded the limit. To a certain extent, it hindered the Holy Grail from retracting its power, ultimately causing this world to be contaminated with too much of the power of the Holy Grail. This certain someone, of course, is you. This ability that you shouldn't have obtained is the identity of the Earth Sauce Exploder. Feel it carefully again, your Earth Sauce Exploder ability is still there. It's just that it has become weaker, and you haven't noticed it for a while. Chen Guang's heart moved slightly. It really was like that, there was a slight feeling. Just now, he was still feeling melancholy. He had once stood at the top of the world, but suddenly became an ordinary person again. This abrupt change really made him feel a little uncomfortable. Although his power had been greatly weakened now, the natural high level of the Earth Sauce Exploder was still there. Luli laughed. Yes, that's right. If this world will have all kinds of mutants sooner or later, you, Chen Guang, will be the first mutant. The king of the earth element. The Earth Sauce Exploder. If you didn't say the last three words, your aura would be much stronger. Chen Guang sighed. According to what they said, it seemed like he had really become a sinner. The most awkward thing was that even though he knew this wasn't good news, he couldn't change anything. Life was like being raped. If one was powerless to resist, he could only close his eyes and simply enjoy it. This was the general description of the situation. Sigh, what will happen? His body could move again. Chen Guang raised his head and looked at the dusky sky in the distance. He didn't know if it was the dust brought by the remnant earth element, or if it was the power of the Holy Grail that he could see with his naked eyes. In any case, his heart was aching. Don't ask me. If I knew everything, I would have escaped long ago. Why would I wait for you to save me? Accept your fate. Alright, to put it bluntly, what I will face next is just like the middle realm of the Heavenly Spirit Cup. There are no routines at all, and it will happen as I say. I'll just take it one step at a time. Luli humphed. Bingwa, congratulations on answering correctly. However, there's no reward. I can give you another famous saying. Chen Guang waved his hand. No need. I don't want to know duo fu. No. I'm not asking for more luck this time. Then I'm all ears. The boat will cross the bridge when it comes to it, and the cart will cross the mountain when it comes to it. You're crazy. Isn't this just an extended version of Duofu? You can interpret it however you want. Anyway, it doesn't matter to you, me, and Dear Cry. Do you understand? This real world of yours, which is this universe, is just one of the billions and billions of universes in my father's master god of chaos body. I've told you about this a long time ago. Even if this universe is completely destroyed because of the fusion with the real world, the heavenly Holy Grail can still bring you to another universe that is similar to this one. If you're unwilling to leave your homeland, I'll just have to wait for you to rescue me. I'll create a mirror image that is exactly the same as this Earth in another universe. I can even duplicate a person for you. Chen Guang shook his head. What a joke. Can this even be a concept? Even if you create a mirror image, even if it looks exactly the same, can the person be the same person? Take my parents for example. I only have 2 parents in this world. Should I go to a completely different universe and recognize another 2 parents? Don't be ridiculous. This is your view of the world, not mine. I can't accept this theory of yours. Liuli pursed her lips. We're just saying it casually. In any case, you can do whatever you want. How things will turn out isn't in our control. Anyway, you're on your own. Now that your physical body has reached perfection, we'll give you a big surprise in a few days. Hurry up and stop talking about unlucky surprises, actions, and plans. I've been listening to you brag for a year. The universe is about to be destroyed by me, and you're still accumulating power. However, Azure ignored Qin Guang's ridicule and went silent after she finished speaking. The melancholic old Master Guang sighed deeply as he held the cup in his hand. Nothing seemed to have changed on the surface, but he knew that it was just as Liuli had said. This world was different from the past. Please don't suddenly drop a golden-armored flaming 3-headed celestial hound on my head. Forget it. In any case, the old man was the ancestor of espers, and he had been at max level from the start. In game terms, the old man was now LV99. He looked a little weak, but his level was still there. It was just that I've emptied my mana. I just have to think of a way to recover it. Let's test out the current power of the soy sauce bomb. Chen Guang raised his hand and pointed at the base of the shattered, which was as good as new, and roared, "Fall." A rock the size of a thumb fell from the building. It was unknown whether it was blown by the wind or caused by the power of the marmalade bomber. What AF * king huge difference. Listen to my command and be born from nothingness. Obelisk's giant god warrior that destroys everything. Unwilling to give up, old Master Guang opened his right palm and created a new set of incantations. A cool breeze blew past, causing his long hair to flutter. However, nothing happened. Chen Guang lowered his head and squinted at his palm. His eyesight, which was honed from his pencil sharpening and dart-throwing skills, allowed him to see a clay figurine about the thickness of a nose hair. If not for his eyesight, he wouldn't have seen it at all. F***CK. Such a small giant god warrior. Are you kidding me? What can you do with this? If I speak too loudly, it will be blown away. My giant god warrior has completely shrunk. It has shrunk to the point of being blown away. Everyone else was still in deep sleep. No one saw the desolation on Chen Guang's face. Stiff. Rua. The difference was so huge that it was a little unbearable. Forget it. At least my Esper ability is more useful than that useless male protagonist who can only bend a spoon. At least it's the only one in the world. After carefully checking the heartbeats of Axayan Qin and the other 2, Chen Guang was slightly relieved after confirming that they were fine and sleeping normally. Don't ask him how he checked other people's heartbeats. Buddha says, don't tell. As for the task force on Shuelin's side, they weren't so lucky. Chen Guang just put his finger in front of their noses. Yes, they're breathing and alive. Next. After he was done, he confirmed that everyone was alive. Then, he went to the group of assassins from the broken world. As far as the eye could see, the scene was a little frightening. Over 1,000 people were sitting cross-legged neatly in a large square formation, but it was deathly silent. There was no expression of pain or struggle on the faces of these people who had died long ago. They looked quiet and serene. If it wasn't for the fact that it was broad daylight, it would be even scarier than a horror movie. Chen Guang swept his gaze across and saw a relatively familiar face in the front row of the square formation. He remembered the appearance of this young man. This was Shattered World's ultimate weapon. It seemed to be called World Sand. He was also dead. For some reason, Chen Guang took a step in the direction of the young man. Suddenly, a relatively fierce gust of wind blew over. Chen Guang was dazzled. The young man's body, hair, face, and hands outside his clothes were blown away like sand in the wind. His clothes slowly fell to the ground. After a while, there was only a pile of yellow sand where he had been sitting. At least the others could leave their bodies intact. But even his body had turned into sand. Chapter 8:17. Looking at this scene, Chen Guang couldn't help but think of the final weapon, Sha, who had seen through the mundane world before her death. He shook his head and wanted to throw this image out of his mind. But that drop of water that he didn't know whether it was a tear or something else appeared in the depths of his mind. It was as if the sun was shining through the window of his heart and shining on this drop of water that no longer existed, making it crystal clear. It floated quietly in the air, but it revealed an eternal loneliness and sadness. It was like a bright Tiffany diamond, and also like Johnny Walker's white rum. Even if it was just in his mind, it seemed to be able to intoxicate him. Chen Guang raised his head slightly and looked at the gray sky at a 45-degree angle. The light breeze carried the fragrance of the Provence lavender under Mount Baral to his face. Collect. Collect for me. This guy can't even rest in peace even in death, and he actually wants to shake my mind. I'm almost depressed. I don't believe that there are good people in an assassin organization. This is ridiculous. Besides, so what if you're a good person? Do good people have to not die? This is my world of punishment. Everyone in the world of destruction must die, no one can be left alive, or I will die myself. Anyway, Rai Chen is already a big villain in the Dolua world. If you're really a good person, then I'm the big villain. It's natural for a villain to kill a good person. At most, I'll just burn more paper money for you. I heard that watching a movie in the underworld is quite expensive. A 2D movie costs more than 60 million, and an IMAX 3D movie costs at least 100 million. Forget it, why am I thinking about this? Everything is empty after death, why should I spoil my mood because of a dead person? If you don't die, then I die. It's that simple. It's funny that this guy actually wants to remind me, and still hopes that I, the main character, will kill the great demon king hiding behind the scenes. If this wasn't true, if I wasn't the great demon king myself, I might have really believed your words. Wait a minute, something doesn't seem right. Forget it, this isn't important. Why do I keep thinking about a dead man? He planned to turn around and leave. As the great director, he would not clean up the mess like collecting the corpse. He would deal with it after Xuelin and the others woke up. At this moment, his sharp eyes saw a small leather booklet on the edge of Sher Shah's clothes on the ground. It was slowly falling out of his pocket. Small notebook. What would it say? Just take a look and you'll know. As a very curious person, he couldn't help but lower his head to take a look at a leaflet on the ground. If it was a beautifully packaged leather book, the temptation would be even more irresistible. He gently took the leather notebook in his hand, shook off the dust on it, and flipped it open. Chen Guang was speechless. This was a diary. The first page wrote the time and date, followed by Shi Sha's words that sounded like he was talking to himself. One day, 12 years ago, he wrote his first sentence. Today, the teacher said that he's going to teach us something new. I want to learn more seriously, but why does this new thing require me to slit someone's throat with a knife? 3 days later, he wrote like this again. There are so many people in the base. We can earn money no matter what we do. We also know so many things. Why must we kill people? The Buddhist scriptures say that all living things are equal. Although I don't believe in Buddhism, I believe that all living things are equal. No one is more noble than anyone else. The world is so big, can't it accommodate a few more people? Chen Guang silently calculated the age at which Shi Sha wrote this diary. He felt that it was very unbelievable. If he didn't count wrong, he was still a 6-year-old child at that time. Think about what he could write when he was 6. He could be considered a genius if he wrote "Moonlight in front of my bed." Damn, if this guy didn't live in the killer base, he would be a literary giant. But 10 days later, the style of his diary changed drastically. I killed people, 3 of them. I didn't want to kill them. Ah, she is my friend. But I had no choice. If I didn't kill them, I would die. It was she who made the first move. When I wanted to discuss with them what to do, she suddenly strangled my neck. He was no longer my friend. He became a beast that wanted to eat people. It was too scary. But I didn't expect them to be so weak. I only used a little strength and they all died. Later, the frequency of Shi Sha's diary became much lower. Maybe he only wrote it once a year. But almost every article had a similar line at the beginning. I killed people, X. The number X was getting bigger and bigger. The highest number was 2 years ago, when it was 27. From time to time, Shi Sha would talk to himself. I want to be a good person. If I can't do it in this life, then in the next. I want to see the outside world. I want to know if my biological parents really abandoned me like what my teachers said. Maybe I was kidnapped and sold. Maybe they have been looking for me. But I don't dare to look for them. Maybe the day I find them will be the day they die. Killers can't have families. I'm free. From today onwards, my name is Shi Sha. I have my own surname. I said I won't go out to kill people. Either they send someone to kill me, or they let me live quietly by the lake. Chen Guang closed the diary slowly and shook the dust off it. He suddenly understood. When the suspicion in the depths of his heart, which had almost become a nightmare in his heart, suddenly became real, he became calm instead. In a sense, Shi Sha was really a good person. He killed many people, but he had no choice. Just like how Shi Sha had to kill him, he had to kill others. The one who forced him was the heavenly Holy Grail. The one who forced Shi Sha was Broken World's teacher. As for those people who died in his hands, they weren't good people either. They were so pitiful. Chen Guang looked at the pile of sand. He sighed in his heart. This person, even if he is a genius, even if he is as strong as I am, to put it bluntly, he is still a small boat in life. In life, there are many times when one has no choice but to do as one pleases. Chen Guang didn't blame himself. There was no use in blaming himself. Shi Sha had killed so many people on his path of growth. Dying tragically in his own hands seemed to be retribution. Everyone just wanted to live. The only difference was that Shi Sha lived a small life, while he lived a great life. That was all. At this moment, Lord Guang still didn't know that the moment he picked up the World Sands notebook, that drop of water that should have disappeared long ago suddenly fell from the sky of a certain realm in the heavenly Holy Grail, landing in a stretch of yellow sand that stretched as far as the eye could see. The scorching summer sky couldn't evaporate this water droplet. Instead, it burrowed into the soil. In the distance, Shuai Lin gradually moaned. He opened his eyes and looked in Chen Guang's direction in a daze. His brain seemed to be a little muddled and he couldn't remember what had happened. Chief Chen, what happened? Shuai Lin propped himself up and tilted his head to look at the neatly seated corpse of the World Shatterer assassin. Chen Guang relaxed. Very good, his memory had been erased. He couldn't remember anything. Nothing much. You were drugged and held hostage. This chief personally took action and killed the assassins. This operation ended successfully. All the World Shatterer assassins were executed. Not a single one was spared. Ha! Shuai Lin's mind froze even more. Just when Chen Guang wanted to say something, his body suddenly trembled. In his eyes, he saw countless threads of faith stretching in his direction from the distant horizon. His mind sank into the heavenly Holy Grail. On one of the platforms on the city wall, he saw a 300-foot-long Airbus A320 statue slowly float up from the surface of the platform. Although the 7 platforms next to it were still empty, Chen Guang remembered that there had once been 7 other statues here. It was just that they had mysteriously disappeared. Damn! The statue of the world of pilots, which he had searched so hard for but failed to find, had suddenly appeared out of the blue without any warning. There was no warning at all. Just like that. Chapter 8:18. Azure, who was planning to meditate, also flew up from Cloud City. She floated in the air and looked at the big airplane statue that was slowly emerging from afar. When the airplane statue was completely formed, it looked exactly the same as the original Airbus A320. Even the patterns and decorations on it were the same as the one that Chen Guang piloted. In a sense, this A320 could be regarded as a model airplane, but this model was a bit big. It was more than 300 meters long, which was equivalent to 10 times the size of the original plane. Why is this? Azure seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be asking Lu Ming. Lu Ming replied without hesitation, "Don't ask me, I don't know." Azure suddenly clapped her hands and came to a sudden realization. The reason why the 8th statue couldn't appear before was related to the loss of the previous 7 statues. Sister Azure, we have confirmed this a long time ago. At that time, what gave us a headache was how to solve this problem. Azure nodded, that's right, but now that the statue has appeared on its own, why should we care about why? It doesn't matter at all. Ha! Doesn't matter. Lu Ming's huge fruit swayed. It was obvious that he had suffered a big mental blow. It took a long time for him to recover, although I feel that something is wrong. What you said makes sense. In fact, everyone knew that this 8th statue must have some connection with the punishment realm that Chen Guang had just experienced, but including Azure, they only knew how and why. As for the deeper reason, perhaps no one understood it. Chen Guang's spirit body floated in front of the airplane statue. He looked left and right, up and down, feeling that it was not cool enough. Change it to J20, thank you. As soon as he said that, the Airbus A320 softened like a fluid, and the overall image quickly evolved into the top fighter in China. In a few seconds, a domineering, meaty, and dazzling supergiant J20 model appeared in front of him. Smacking his lips, Chen Guang nodded. It looked much more pleasing to the eye this way. In that short amount of time, the threads of faith coming from the outside world had already passed through the barrier between the real world and the world within a cup. They appeared out of thin air in the sky far away from Cloud City and spread at an extremely fast speed, connecting to the statue of J-20. Chen Guang seemed to have seen this scene before. But compared to other statues, the pilot statue's faith value thread seemed a little special. There were many fine threads, about half of Otto's. This meant that in this world, the people who would care about who was the best at piloting a plane were about half the people who drove a car. There was nothing strange about this. Although they were both driving skills, airplanes were not seen every day like cars. Although everyone knew about it, the number of people who would think about it was much fewer than the driving enthusiasts. But the plane statue's faith value output was much higher than the Alto statue's. From the very beginning, it had reached the maximum of 52,000. The reason was none other than the tens of thousands of exceptionally thick threads of faith value. Unlike car drivers, most pilots were real professionals in this industry. They were either pilots of civil airplanes or pilots of the Air Force. In the civil aviation industry, safe flight was more important than anything else. Chen Guang's achievements were great. He brought aviation safety to a new level. After receiving the Hero's Medal, he generously opened a course and publicly explained flight control skills. His selfless dedication was great, but this was not the end. His lecture records were saved. From the moment school ended, the relevant departments of major airlines around the world concentrated on sorting out and analyzing his lecture records and compiling a monograph. The current level of progress was just the beginning. The flight control skills he brought out were far more than that. He was simply a bottomless pit. His lecture records were like a deep sea full of treasures. As long as they could continue to decipher them, what awaited the entire civil aviation industry would be a leap in human flight technology, and there was no end in sight in the short term. As for the Air Force, whether it was in Huaxia or internationally, the private information about fighter jet piloting that Chen Guang had deliberately stuffed into the course was even more treasured. The result of this fact was that his reputation in the entire field of flight control had directly reached its peak. Especially those who had personally listened to his lectures in the chat room, they regarded him as a god. These tens of thousands of extremely thick threads of faith value came from the students in the chat room. In addition, there were about tens of millions of relatively thick threads of faith value, which came from the employees of major airlines around the world. The influence of the Xiangjiang gambling race was different from that of the underground racing world. After all, it was an underground race that could not be seen in the light. This time, he got positive publicity that spread to the whole world. He himself had put in a lot of effort for this statue. Whether it was hype or excessive generosity, his several consecutive days of late-night flying lessons had indeed accumulated his reputation in this industry to a considerable height. Now that the statue had been completed, the production of faith value directly went off the charts, which was also the benefit of his accumulation. When the statue here stabilized, Chen Guang returned outside. Xuelin, who had just barely propped herself up, looked at him with a face full of shame. "Director, I've embarrassed you." Chen Guang walked to his side and patted him on the shoulder. "It's nothing. There's something wrong with our intelligence work. You didn't do anything wrong. You sacrificed a colleague in exchange for this result. It's still acceptable." As the two chatted, the others gradually woke up one after another. These people's reactions were no different from Xuelin's. They were shocked by the terrible scene of neatly arranged but strangely dead bodies. Chen Guang was not in the mood to explain to everyone. As the saying goes, a higher-ranking official can crush a lower-ranking official. The Guangding General Office was also a special unit with the nature of a special agent organization. It was not something low-level employees should do to get to the bottom of things. He left Xuelin in the world-shattering base to clean up the mess, while he drove the van to Wutua town with the sect masters of the Thousand Despair sect and Myriad Flower Valley and Xan Qin. However, there was something that gave him a headache. Everyone else had woken up, but only Enchanting, Wu Miaowan, and Lu Fei did not move. Even when they returned to Wutuo town and settled the three of them in the hotel, the three of them were still in deep sleep. Chen Guang secretly pinched Enchanting's leg, but there was no movement. Sect Master Wu, did something happen to the three of them? Chen Guang asked anxiously in the room. Wu Miaowan's master, Wu Qingming, was the myriad Flower Valley master who was famous for her elixirs. She was a divine physician with a high level of Chinese medicine. She had just taken the pulse of the three of them. Wu Qingming frowned slightly. The pulse of the three of them is stable, and they have sufficient qi and blood. There are no internal injuries in their bodies. They should have woken up by now. That's right. What's going on? Wu Qingming tidied up her clothes and stood up. Director Chen, you don't have to worry too much. The three of them are breathing steadily. Let's wait and see for a while. If they still don't wake up, we'll think of another way. Abbess Axian Yuan, who was standing at the side, also said, Sect Master Wu's medical skills are extremely high. With her around, nothing serious will happen. Enchanting and Wu Miaowan are also the eldest disciples of our two sections. Their physiques are far stronger than ordinary people. It's just a small matter. Thank you, Director Chen. Wu Qingming nodded. That's right. Director Chen, your friend is not an ordinary person. Her aptitude is quite high. If we saw her when she was young, we might have taken her in as a disciple. I'll go and write a prescription first. I'll go to the pharmacy in this town to get a few doses of refreshing medicine. If they don't wake up in an hour, we'll feed them. The two sect masters were exceptionally calm. Chen Guang did not have any good ideas. Wu Qingming went out to look for medicine, while Abbess Axian Yuan sat in the living room with her sword in her arms. It seemed that she was performing her duty as a guard. On the other hand, the Chinese military had reached an agreement with the neighboring country. Several military helicopters were taking off from the border airport and heading straight to this place to help with the follow-up work. Only Chen Guang knew that all the members of the broken world were dead, but the others could not feel at ease. On the other hand, Xue Lin and the rest of the task force were still confused at the broken world base. They had 1,000 mysteries in their hearts, but the director did not seem to be interested in explaining. Team leader Xue, these people died so strangely. Don't ask me. I don't know anything. Maybe it's an inner force ability that Director Chen learned from the Wen clan. Don't ask so much. Xue Lin dealt with a certain agent who was overly curious. She thought to herself, forget it. No matter how strange the situation is now, the task force came to Mount Baylor to carry out a mission. Although the current situation of the mission was beyond everyone's understanding, in a sense, the Special Affairs Bureau, a special unit that replaced the Special Affairs Bureau, had to face situations that were beyond the understanding of ordinary people, right? When she thought about it this way, she suddenly felt better. He waved his hand again and shouted, everyone, check carefully. See if there's anyone left. This is the first big operation of the Guangdong General Bureau. We can't afford to make any mistakes. At the bottom of the mountain, Ouyang Tianqing was running forward in the tunnel with all his might. His face was pale, and his forehead was covered in sweat. With his inner force cultivation, he should not have broken a sweat while running like this, but his face was covered in cold sweat. The scene he saw in the Doluo world was still playing over and over in his mind. Just recalling that scene was enough to make him tremble uncontrollably. How terrifying, how strange. Chen Guang was not human at all. Such a powerful broken world holy clan was wiped out. Not a single one was left alive. They could not even cause him any trouble. From the start to the end, he was never serious. It was like a cat toying with a mouse. If he did not see it with his own eyes, Ouyang Tianqing would probably still be immersed in the illusion that inner force martial artists were invincible. At this moment, all he could think about was, what was the truth of this world? What kind of power did Chen Guang have? Other than Chen Guang, how many people were like him? I, Ouyang Tianqing, want to be like that too. Chapter 8:19. Ouyang Tianqing jumped out of the secret tunnel and disappeared into the woods. He did not know that there was a mysterious rune on the surface of his heart that was flickering along with his heartbeat. He was very unfortunate. As a mortal in a sense, he was inexplicably involved in such a matter. However, he was lucky that the battle on the ground did not kill him. The three great patriarchs of the world-shattering clan had escaped far away, and the battle had not happened above the basement where he was hiding. Therefore, he survived. As someone who was not part of the Heavenly Holy Grail's plan, his memory was not erased. The fictitious world-shattering holy tribe had lost their bodies, their powers, and their souls. However, before the three elders died, they had left a mark of resentment on the body of Ouyang Tianqing, the only survivor of the world-shattering holy tribe, who was related to the world-shattering holy tribe. What was false was not necessarily false, and what was true was not necessarily true. If everyone believed in something, even if it was a lie, it would become the truth in the eyes of the world. The real and the illusory were eternal enemies. At least, for Ouyang Tianqing, the world-shattering holy tribe and grand sorcerer Right Qin were the most realistic. His belief in this matter was even more sincere than Chen Guang himself. On the other side, the three women did not wake up. Chen Guang did not know what to do. While Wu Qingming went out to buy medicine, he crossed his legs and rested his head on the sofa. He was thinking about the second volume of the painting volume, which was the real part about the inner strength. He had spent a lot of effort to make his body complete, so of course, he had to learn the inner strength. Although the ability of the earth-paced exploder was of a high level, it could only fly a pebble and summon a giant soldier god. It was really not good enough to be used in public, and he did not know how to improve it. It seemed more reliable to learn inner strength. He thought about it for a while, but it did not seem to work. He decided to do it at night. According to the incantation, the painting volume used literature to enter the Tao. Before guiding the qi sense, one must take a bath and change clothes, recite the classics, nourish the qi, and calm the spirit. Then, at midnight, one must light a white candle to make the shape of the Big Dipper. First, one must recite an obscure and profound classical Chinese in his heart, so that one could enter a state of confusion. Alright, this couldn't be said to be fooling around, but rather using the writings of the predecessors to cultivate one's mind. A good essay could either depict beautiful scenery or express one's feelings. If one were to read it seriously and put one's own feelings into it, one's emotions would naturally burst forth. This was the emotion that came from the article. It could be the surge of blood, or the melancholy of spring and autumn. It didn't matter. What was important was that the heart was moved, and the emotions were aroused. Then, according to the instructions of the incantation, the breathing and exhalation, thinking about the feeling of qi. This feeling of qi might not be achieved overnight. Those who were talented, like Wenwen, could successfully capture the feeling of qi in less than a month or two, and then store it in the dantian, officially embarking on the path of an inner strength martial artist. Those who were not talented, like Lu Chao's bodyguard, Tai Xinju, could barely form the feeling of qi after 7 or 8 years. At this time, he was already in his 20s. After another 8 or 10 years, he would reach the peak of his life, and at this time, he would be in his 30s. Unfortunately, this peak was only at the level of muscle strength, which could not be shown in public. After that, he would be thankful that his cultivation did not decline. Martial arts were ruthless, and one's innate talent and comprehension shackled the limits of one's cultivation. The so-called hard work could make up for one's lack of talent, but that was only under the same conditions. For example, Wen cultivated for 1 year, and Tai Xinju cultivated for 10 or 20 years. How could they compare? The innate difference in innate talent and comprehension could not be made up for later. Chen Guang felt that with his talent, he would be able to cross the threshold in 1 day, then 2 days for muscle jing, 3 days for bone jing, 4 days for skin jing, and 5 days for great perfection to become a great scholar like Wen. After 6 days, he would probably be invincible. It took 7 days to build Rome, but it only took 6 days for the old man to be invincible. I'll start work tonight if I have nothing to do. However, there was a problem. Among the descendants of the Wen family, when Wen first stimulated her sense of qi, she recited the Song of Righteousness written by Wen Tianxiang in prison in the southern Song dynasty. But what should he read? Do you also read the Song of Morality? This was not necessarily the case. Throughout history, most of the descendants of the school of Wen read the Song of Righteousness, but there were also people who read Yu Fei's Rivers Run Red, Xan Qiji's Breaking the Formation, or Su Shi's Shuidiao Getu. It was not as if there were no predecessors of the school of Wen who read the Analects of Confucius and the Book of Songs. There were no restrictions on what kind of articles one could read. As long as one was emotionally invested, one would be able to achieve results. There was another question. Why did it have to be in classical Chinese or ancient Chinese? Weren't all the articles in the world just articles? The articles written by the ancients seem to be ancient Chinese now, but 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or even in the era when the articles were written, were they still ancient Chinese? It was not wrong to say that they were popular song lyrics. In that case, the words in the mnemonics would be illogical and contradictory. Therefore, for the experience and lessons of the predecessors, we can't not believe them completely. We have to think dialectically, make our own choices, and make our own judgments. Therefore, Chen Guang silently took out the Popcorn 6 SPLUS from his bag and first downloaded the e-book Jin Ping Mei to calm himself down. This was also ancient Chinese, and it was also very literary. The words were also very artistic, but because of some unspeakable reasons, it was a little bit of a bad name. Anyway, since he had nothing to do, he might as well give it a try first. If there was no effect, he could just change to the Song of Righteousness. After making up his mind, Chen Guang was idle again. He was simply bored. Poor Wen. If she knew that a certain insensitive person was actually planning to use Jin Ping Mei to stimulate the sense of qi, she was afraid that she would either die of anger or strangle Chen Guang to death. My head, at this moment, Xan Qin suddenly opened her eyes slowly. Then, she raised her hand and rubbed her temples, which were swollen and painful. When Chen Guang, who was sitting next to her, heard the sound, he hurriedly trotted in front of her. Are you okay? Are you okay? Xan Qin looked up at Chen Guang and was stunned for a while. Then, she opened her mouth. Grand Magisterite, Chen. Big Daisy Elder. Chen Guang, huh? On the other side, Wu Miaowan's voice also came. Mr. Right? Chen Guang, damn it. They didn't lose their memories. This didn't make sense. Alright, there wasn't anything scientific about this. While scientists were still researching whether antimatter really existed and whether there were white holes behind black holes, the old man had already treated other planes as his backyard. Oh, right, these planes and worlds were still in the old man's cup, hee. Then the problem was, how should I deal with these two? How should I fool them so that they would pretend that nothing had happened in the following days? At this moment, Lu Fei's voice came from behind him. It seemed that the three of them had woken up at the same time. Chen Guang. Lu Fei said in a low voice, her tone filled with confusion and lack of confidence. Chen Guang's heart relaxed. Fortunately, Sister Lu Fei had forgotten. At least he could fool one less person. Has your Doluo world been destroyed? Will you continue to stay in this world in the future? Then are you Chen Guang or right Qin? Lu Fei spoke again. Poor Master Guang pinched his forehead. His heart was so tired. Lu Fei didn't lose her memories either. Bureau Chief Qin, are they all awake? Xan Qin's master suddenly appeared at the door again. She looked very calm and expressionless, but for some reason, Chen Guang didn't like this master very much. He always felt subconsciously afraid of her. He definitely wouldn't admit that he had accidentally eaten Xan Qin this time and felt guilty. Chen Guang nodded. Yes, they're awake. Master, please wait outside for a while. I have something to tell them. At this time, the benefits of being in a high position and being a bureau chief were revealed. Although Master Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming were considered elders, in the Guangding General Headquarters, they were at most people from the pugilistic world who cooperated with the headquarters. Chen Guang's identity represented the official position and was the official bureau chief. In addition to what happened today, although the two elders didn't know how Chen Guang did it, they felt that he must have a real trump card that was not known to others. His strength couldn't be underestimated, and they no longer treated him as a useless bureau chief who relied on Wenwen's support like before. Chen Guang closed the door and then spent about 10 seconds to adjust his mood and think about what to say. As a result, in front of Xan Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Lu Fei, his aura suddenly changed. He didn't answer anyone's question. Instead, he walked to the window with his hands behind his back and his neck held high. He looked out of the window quietly and took a deep breath. An aura called melancholy gushed out from his body and shrouded the ward firmly. The world-class acting skills were activated, making the whole room melancholy with him. I can't go back anymore. Damn the broken world Saint clan, they chose to perish together. Even if they die, they won't leave a passage for me. Chen Guang's voice was slightly hoarse, with a unique magnetism, like a baritone from an old-fashioned record player. Xan Qin and the other two were stunned. Chen Guang turned his head and looked at the three of them. Under the corner of his right eye, a tear fell silently from his cheek. Ah, how sad it was. How desperate it was for a person to never be able to return to his hometown. Xan Qin and the other two gasped. The radiance of motherhood gradually burst out uncontrollably in their hearts. They had been played by the world-class acting skills. Chen Guang suddenly smiled again. But it doesn't matter. I have no family in that world. The rest of my life is here. I was born and raised here, and I will be buried here in the future. My name is Chen Guang, not Right Qin. I'll treat my past life as a dream. I'll treat my life of studying and studying magic year after year as a dream. I'll treat it as if I've never recovered those meaningless memories. This way, I won't be tortured to death by longing. I've already lost everything in that world. There won't even be anyone who remembers me. This world has treated me well. I have family, friends, and you guys here. There's nothing bad about being a person without a past. Be it magic or studying, aren't they all survival skills of near life? I'm now a deputy director in this world. In Doluo world, my social status isn't any lower than a great magister's. I'm doing quite well. Ha 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 ha. He laughed again, but as he laughed, tears streamed down his face. As a super professional world-class actor, crying scenes didn't require onion eye drops at all. He could do it whenever he wanted. It wasn't something that Miss Number's stand-in could compare to. Master Guang expressed that apart from being an outstanding actor, he also seemed to have the potential to be a scriptwriter. Aunt Cheong Yao-style jokes really came out of nowhere. The key was that the effects were pretty good. Enchanting and the other two actually didn't have any problems. The three of them jumped off the hospital bed and hugged Guang from 3 different directions. Lu Fei's eyes were filled with tears. Don't be sad. At least you still have us. We remember you. Enchanting's nose twitched. That's right. The 3 of us went to see that world with you. We know that you were once a great magister. Wu Miaoan said, Director Great Magister, don't cry. Stand up and rub. No, we all know your secret. You have to teach me. Being hugged by the 3 of them, Guang's eyes almost turned into crescent moons. Fortunately, he controlled himself in time. He coughed lightly and continued with a straight face. But only the 3 of you know that Lin and your master have lost their memories. Although I don't know why, maybe the rules of the world think that they shouldn't know these things. But the 3 of you still have that memory. I still don't understand, but you have to remember this well. You have to keep this matter to yourself. Don't ever mention it to anyone else. Remember. Remember. The 3 of them nodded and hugged him even tighter. Just treat this as the biggest secret in the hearts of the 4 of them. Heaven knows, earth knows, you know, we know. The 3 of them were secretly delighted like little girls, just like little fans who had secretly become friends with a big star. Guang was a star now, but it didn't matter whether he was a star or not. How could a star be more powerful than a destructive great magister? The moment they saw him, they felt like they were living in a fantasy novel. Moreover, they were one of the main characters. What could be more blissful than this? Chapter 820. It didn't take long for Wu Qingming to come back. To be on the safe side, Enchanting and the other 2 drank a traditional Chinese medicine to refresh their minds and restore their energy. She deserved to be the master of Wanhua Valley. Even if she didn't have the right medicinal materials, the effect of the prescription was not comparable to that of ordinary people. After the 3 women drank the medicine, they were immediately refreshed. Not only did they not have any sequelae, but they were also full of energy. Several military helicopters from home had also arrived. After dropping off the follow-up troops, they were ready to return immediately. Guang thought that since the people of the World Breaker were all dead, Lin and the others were no longer in any danger in Wutua town, and his punishment world was completely over. It was a waste of life to stay here and waste time, so he simply wanted to go back to Wujing first. He didn't know what would happen when he stimulated the qi sense. After all, Wutua town was not his territory, so he always felt uncertain. The way of practicing martial arts was broad and profound. Maybe a little discomfort would affect the state. It was better to go back. Therefore, he, the director who didn't want to be in charge, was ready to run away. He could take the military helicopter on the return trip, which saved time and effort. Enchanting, Wu Miaoan, and Lu Fei all had that little secret in their hearts. They felt that there was nothing wrong with the Grand Magister right now, but there was a lingering melancholy hidden in his eyes. The 3 of them secretly felt sorry for him, so they followed Guang back to the 5 capital cities. Abbess Yuan and Wu Qingming took the initiative to participate in this action, but they didn't help anything from the beginning to the end. The 2 had the cultivation of the peak of skin strength, but they lost a part of their memory in a daze. When they came to their senses, everything was over. If they didn't participate in the aftermath work, they would lose face as the masters of the 2 sections. Therefore, the 2 did not follow Guang back, but went to the base of the World Breaker at the foot of Mount Baral to help Lin deal with the aftermath properly. Although they had all been executed, the base of the broken world was well preserved. Not a single piece of information was missing. After digesting all the information, not only would they be able to solve many unsolved cases, but they would also be able to get hold of the weaknesses of those who had ill intentions. Why not? After arriving at the 5 capital cities, Chen Guang planned to take a private car straight back to his rented apartment. Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan wanted to go back as well, but Shuai Lin kept sending over important information from time to time. The headquarters of the 5 capital cities needed to be coordinated and handled. As the director, Chen Guang was used to being a hands-off boss. On the other hand, Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan, the 2 deputies, had to work like a horse, unable to get away. In addition, their masters felt that they had not performed well in this incident, so they had secretly ordered them to stay in the 5 capitals and take charge of the work. They must not affect the status of the Thousand Despair sect and the myriad Flower Valley in the Jianghu under the new circumstances. Therefore, even though Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan were a little unwilling, they had no choice but to bid farewell to Chen Guang for the time being. They were ready to return to the headquarters building in the city. Director Archmage, don't be too sad. Just like you said, since you can't go back, you should live well in this world. No matter what, you still have me, my little darling, and sister Lu Fei in this world. Before they parted, Wu Miaowan comforted Chen Guang in a youthful manner. Xan Qin added, and your family, and Wenwen. Oh, that's right, and that classmate of yours, Sun Xiaoxuan, your teacher Zhua, Jiang Yage, Jin Shiyue, and your director Wu Tong. Damn it. Director Fickle, you have a lot of debts. Why do I feel that it's a good thing that you can't go back? Otherwise, who's going to help you pay off your debt of love? He's truly worthy of being Chen Guang's right-hand man. He's so clear about Chen Guang's matters. It's not that he doesn't know about it, but he's startled by it. He's practically cleaning up Chen Guang's debt of love. Chen Guang's face froze. He thought to himself, you seem to have forgotten about Sister Tangning. Forget it, there's nothing to show off about this. He was also feeling a bit of a pain in the ass. He thought to himself, this old man is a verbal cannon. Although my heart is always on fire, my actions have always been upright and straight. Don't look at how many people I've pointed out. If I ask myself honestly, it's all because people in Jianghu have no choice. Besides, most people and I are very innocent. Teacher Zhua and I, it was a coincidence that caused our emotions to explode. Although this old man is a righteous person, I am also a hot-blooded young man. In that kind of situation and that kind of state of mind, I simply couldn't resist it. That's right, you can't blame me for this. Wenwen and I were reasonable. Although I had some thoughts about her, it was just a thought. How the hell would I know? I knocked her out and pushed her down, but she still wouldn't admit it. The second time, it was also because she went berserk. The old man had the heart of a doctor, and his motive was to save the dying and help the injured. He was upright and straight. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. I was sacrificing myself for myself. That was a compassionate heart. Cough, cough, in short, it was also an accident. Other than that, all right, I also felt a bit guilty in front of little Xan Qin, but can you blame me for this? This kind of coincidence happening in mid-air is probably the same as buying a $2 lottery ticket on the street and winning 5 million. It's all fate. As for other people, Jin Shiyue and I are innocent. I don't feel guilty even if I say it out loud. With Jiang Yage, all right, it doesn't seem to be too innocent. Although she has something on me, I can't deny that sometimes my brain is out of control and my mind is out of control. I take the initiative to ask her for more. This is my fault, I admit it. When I was with Sister Lu Fei in Shangjiang. That, all right, I also admit that my self-control is a bit lacking. At that time, in the parking lot of the car race, there were too many demons and ghosts. I admit that I was infected and did some stupid things. Later on, I did some shameful things with Sister Lu Fei on the side of the road, but, all right, I won't argue anymore. I admit it. And Sister Wu Tong, this matter, it's a bit hard to explain in a few words. But up until now, I can still maintain my innocence with her and didn't take the last step. This already shows that I'm as calm as Lu Xiaohui, okay? If it was in ancient times, I would have been given a silk banner and my name would have been recorded in history. Oh right, there's also Xiao Sun. Sigh, she's also a person with a bitter life. I don't even know what to do. Thinking of her, I also have a headache. Whatever I do is wrong. I originally wanted to keep my distance from her, but that incident happened in America. I can't just leave her to die, right? With my understanding of her, I'm afraid that she will never be able to walk out of here in this lifetime. But her temperament is gentle and stubborn. She seems to be very traditional. Yet, I can't control my state of mind and body. I'm afraid that the deeper she loves, the deeper she will be hurt. Even if I were to make her give up, I'm afraid that she would take things to the extreme. Then, would only be left with vexation. Oh, there's also Sister Tanging. From a certain perspective, we are also in a doctor-patient relationship. But this time, I'm the patient in her heart. She's treating me for my non-existent kidney disease. Forget it, there's no need to count. It seems that Enchanting isn't completely wrong. I really can't be considered as a good person. But since things have come to this, what can I do? Commit suicide to apologize to the world? Or should I just become a monk and end all troubles? None of these are solutions. Since things have come to this, I can only take one step at a time. Right at this moment, Lioli suddenly reminds him in his heart. Say, don't forget that you still have Annie in the Sea of Transient. She's the one who rolled in the sheets with you the most and made you the most satisfied. Chen Guang's face reddens. Of course, he wouldn't forget about Annie. Aren't I counting my romantic debts in the real world? Of course I remember Annie. Forget it, it's not like I'm criticizing you. Besides, what romantic debts are you talking about? In the matters between men and women, there's no such thing as who owes who. To put it bluntly, it's just consensual. Do you think that these girls who think that they owe others don't know that your butt isn't clean? Do they understand why most of them don't point it out? Isn't it because they're afraid that once they point it out, you'll be forced to leave? Ah. Is that so? You're Qin Guang. The savior of the heavenly Holy Grail, the master of the 3,000 worlds. The ruler of the earth element, the earth sauce exploder. In the endless god realm, you're an existence that isn't inferior to a god emperor. You're actually doubting yourself because of this matter. Just what are you thinking? As a man, don't you want to eat meat, drink wine, and be magnanimous? This plane, this universe, this planet, in the end, it's just the first step in your long journey. You're just a passerby here. When you do things in this world, you should do as you please. Why do you have so many misgivings? The so-called intersection between the soul and the flesh is just a small matter, an insignificant small matter. You're really infuriating me. You're really embarrassing me. Unexpectedly, Lioli suddenly flared up. Dear Cry advised from the side, Sister Lioli, calm down, calm down. Isn't he always like this? It's not like you don't know. Back then, because of his temper, didn't you? Shut up. Dear Cry. Lioli suddenly interrupted Dear Cry's words, making Chen Guang scratching his head in confusion. Of course, Chen Guang knew the meaning of Lioli's previous words. She wanted to say that his status wasn't that of an ordinary person. He was like an ancient emperor and shouldn't be troubled by these things. His style of doing things should be more heroic. To put it bluntly, he should take advantage of others when there's a chance, and not be lenient or soft-spoken. Even if he really messed up on someone's side and caused trouble, he had 3,000 worlds. Everything that happened here was insignificant to him. Just like how Liuli didn't seem to care much about the lives of the people in this world when she spoke. Chen Guang was sure that even if all the people on Earth died, Liuli's heart wouldn't be affected at all. As long as he was still alive, she didn't care about anything. I understand the logic, and you're right, but it's really difficult to do it. That's the worldview of God, the view of life. I'm a human, and I have my own view of life, which is different from yours. Even if I've experienced a lot, even if I've felt the incredible so-called ultimate power of the Mother Earth exploder in the punishment world this time, haven't I come back? Just as Enchanting said, I'm a mortal who owes a lot of debts after all. I can't get rid of the human flavor in my bones. Chapter 8:21. Look at how disappointing you are. How blind was I to choose you back then? Seeing that she had said so much to no avail, Liuli scolded him and went silent again. Chen Guang didn't argue with her. It was meaningless. After sending Enchanting and Wu Miaoan off, he went home with Lu Fei. Speaking of which, he planned to buy this house and the house Shuo Jingxi was renting. He had already arranged for his professional lackey, Lu Xiaoyang, to take care of it. There was no other reason. He was so rich that it wouldn't be comfortable renting someone else's house. Since he had nothing to do and he had more money than he could spend, he might as well buy the house completely and do whatever he wanted. He wouldn't have to rent someone else's house all the time and find it troublesome to change the appliances. Although this house wasn't considered a high-end neighborhood, it was close to the school. He would have to stay here for another year. When he graduated, it would be convenient for him to keep a junior in this house. Ahem. I'm just kidding. I really didn't think of it that way. Sister Lu Fei, why don't you go back to your own house? Chen Guang asked as he took out the key and opened the door. He changed his shoes and casually pressed the switch. The lights in the room turned on. Looking at the familiar furnishings in the room, he felt as if he had been in another world. He was still in this room last night, but when he saw the sofa, the small 42-inch TV, and the Supreme Tycoon phone in the corner of the living room, he felt very emotional. It felt like a long time had passed without him realizing it. Chen Guang secretly scratched his head. Perhaps it was because too many things had happened in the punishment realm, and he had once become a powerful existence like the Earth Bean Popper. Therefore, although only a day had passed, the things that he had experienced were unimaginable for many people in their lifetime. That's right, that must be it. Seeing that he was distracted, Lu Fei pushed him and rushed into the room. She said, "What's going on? Hurry up and go in. You're asking me why I'm not going home. I'm worried about you, right?" She would never admit that she had ulterior motives. Of course, only she knew what was in the depths of her heart. At this moment, she was more like a hungry wolf or a ferocious tiger. From the moment Enchanting and Wu Miaoan left, Lu Fei had secretly made up her mind. Initially, she had not made up her mind, but since Enchanting and Wu Miaoan had decided to stay in the Guangding General Headquarters in the city, wasn't this a godsend opportunity for her? She immediately changed her mind. Lu Fei didn't think too much about it. She just felt that the matter between her and Chen Guang had been dragged on long enough. Since a long time ago, she had wanted to do something with the most perfect man she had ever met, but in the end, perhaps because she wasn't proactive enough, or perhaps because everyone was busy, it had unknowingly been dragged to this day. Originally, the relationship between him and her had already become abnormal. That layer of window paper seemed like it could be pierced at any time, but it just happened to be one step short. As a result, now more and more people were catching up, and she was the one who was ahead of them. This made her feel that she was at a disadvantage, and she was very unhappy. I don't care who got to know me first. I was the one who first had this idea, and now I'm actually left behind. This can't be tolerated. In Lu Fei's view of life, this matter really wasn't something to be bothered about. In the past, it wasn't that I didn't like to play, but that my standards were too high, and I had never met a man who caught my eye. Only Chen Guang completely meets my standards, and I'm willing. Although he's younger than me, he's really great. No one can be like him, giving me the feeling of my heart racing wildly and unstoppably. I've read in a book that if a woman met a man, just looking at him, thinking about him, hearing his voice, and smelling his scent would make her heart race uncontrollably, then congratulations, you've fallen in love. At this time, there were two choices. Either stay as far away from him as possible, and never see him again. Maybe time would help you forget this feeling. Or, don't hesitate, bravely pounce on him, and ruthlessly bite him. Even if you bite him until he's drenched in blood, even if you're covered in cuts and bruises, even if you're hurt to the bone, you don't have to regret it. At least in this kind of life, there's a complete and vigorous love. It's better than looking back on the first half of your life when you're old and can't find anything worth remembering no matter how hard you try. Besides, Chen Guang's philandering has its advantages. It doesn't matter if someone is ahead of him, his heart is always very big, and I can always dig out a place for myself in his heart. His philandering is a disadvantage, but in a certain sense, it's also an advantage. I don't have to worry about getting hurt here. Also, I don't care what will happen in the future. I completely meet the criteria of having something happen with him. Now that I'm left behind, it's not that he doesn't care about me, and it's not that I don't have that idea anymore. It's just a coincidence that I missed it. Today, I won't miss another opportunity. Moreover, in Wutua town, when I was at my most desperate moment, didn't I also think that if someone came to save me, I would devote myself to that person? In the end, someone really came. It's really him again. Originally, because they haven't been in contact for too long, their relationship gradually became indifferent. But at this moment, Lu Fei felt that she had fallen into it again, and it was even deeper than before. Although he didn't ride a white horse and descend from the sky like what was written in fairy tales and only drove a bus, he was indeed the one who saved her from the trap. What happened after that, when she thought about it now, felt like a dream. Although he didn't feel that proud and didn't take it seriously, in my eyes, his power to destroy the world with a raise of his hand was simply earth-shattering, okay? If I didn't see it with my own eyes, if I didn't personally participate in this matter, I would simply think that I'm dreaming. No, even in my dreams, I can't dream of such an incredible thing. Where can I find such a man? I can't even find him with a lantern. Although he said that he can't return to that soul world anymore, Lu Fei, don't believe him. He was born extraordinary, and he has more secrets on him. For example, the cup that he asked me in Enchanting to bring up the mountain previously, there must be some secrets that I don't know, and he isn't willing to say. But it doesn't matter, who doesn't have their own little secrets? I have curiosity too, but I won't get to the bottom of it. When he feels that he can tell me, he will naturally say it. Now that he isn't saying it, he must have his reasons. It doesn't matter, let's cook the rice first, and when it's time for him to give in, he will naturally obediently give in. As expected of Lu Fei, she used her experience in the business field to get along with people, and it's really useful. At least compared to others, Lu Fei saw the matters between men and women very thoroughly, and she thought very clearly in her heart. Her temperament was also far more vigorous than the average person, and she didn't care about trifles, otherwise, she wouldn't have indulged Chen Guang so much in Xiangjiang, and it could even be said that she took the initiative to seduce Chen Guang. After entering the room, Lu Fei was not polite at all. Instead, she was like half a host, walking around very familiarly, pointing and talking. No matter how messy your clothes are, don't you think it's dirty? How long have you not swept the floor? Don't you find it hard to live alone? You look good outside, but your ability to take care of yourself at home, tisk, it's really incurable. Chen Guang was sweating because of her words, and he didn't know how to answer her. In fact, Chen Guang was not stupid. She had returned to Wujing, but Lu Fei didn't go back to her home. She must have a plot. The robbers in the world either rob money or rape women. After thinking about it, she was much richer than him, so it was impossible to rob money, so she must want to rape him. To be honest, Chen Guang was also quite tempted. Especially Lu Fei's graceful figure, no matter from which side, it was perfect and impeccable. She was used to wearing tight clothes, and her beautiful figure was completely exposed in front of Chen Guang. That straight and round but was simply a gift from the Creator. Chen Guang looked at it twice, and felt that his saliva would flow down uncontrollably. From time to time, his mind would recall everything that happened with her in Xiangjiang. That incomparably tight elasticity, the delicate touch like silk when his palm touched her skin, and that night on the side of the Wujing Third Ring Road, when she was so tired that her mouth was unclear, and her blushing face was extremely bashful. What a deep memory! All of this was fiercely tugging at his heart. However, in life, there were always some things that had to be prioritized. After waiting bitterly for a long time, now that he finally had the opportunity to cultivate his inner strength, Chen Guang really didn't want to delay for a quarter of an hour. With his character, if he really made a move on Sister Lu Fei tonight, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop it until tomorrow morning. This was really difficult to make a choice. Where's the bathroom at home? I'm going to take a shower. I've been tired all day, and I'm all sweaty. Over there. Okay. Lu Fei responded, and then quietly walked to the side of the living room and closed the curtains tightly. She turned her head and blinked at Chen Guang, reminding him, "Don't open the curtains." Then she made a charming expression that said, "You know," and went straight to the bathroom while twisting her small waist. Usually, she didn't walk like this. Now that she deliberately twisted her waist to highlight her advantage, the meaning was self-evident. However, she was different from other coquettish bitches. She was naturally beautiful. Ordinary people would feel very awkward and uncomfortable when they walked like a cat, but when she walked like this, not only did it not make people feel uncomfortable, but it also exuded an extremely strong feminine smell, causing Chen Guang to be stunned for a long time. Sigh. Chen Guang actually wanted to ask Lu Fei if she wanted him to bring her a new bath towel, and maybe a change of clothes or something. But on second thought, as a girl, how could she not think of these things? Since she didn't say it, then she must be planning to use his bath towel. Although this was a little exciting, it was not unacceptable. As for clothes, she had already drawn the curtains, was there a need to say? She clearly didn't intend to wear it. Yes, that's right, she really wanted to eat me today. Chen Guang swallowed his saliva violently. So painful, so tangled. At this moment, he seemed to be standing at the corner of heaven. On one side was the inner strength that he yearned for, and on the other side was the fresh and tender body that he yearned for. Both sides were heaven, and both sides had a great attraction. Heavens. Earth. I'm clearly a pure and good young man, why do I have to face such a difficult choice? So difficult, this is really very difficult. Chapter 8:22. On one side was the fish, and on the other side was the bear paw. He wanted both the fish and the bear paw, and he wanted to eat them right now. How hard was it to choose? At this moment, Chen Guang was suffering great torture. He approached the bathroom, where the sound of water was coming from, and his heart was racing. He took out the painting scroll from his bag, and he couldn't hold it. The back of his hand was meat, and both sides were meat, and they were all so tempting. Lu Mingguo's voice suddenly sounded in his heart, "Stupid. Didn't you want to see Jean Pingmei?" You can have your cake and eat it too. You can find Lu Fei to talk about life philosophy with you from poetry and songs. It seemed like Liuli was really going to carry out her big plan this time, so it was Lu Ming's turn to ridicule. Don't mess around, that was just a random thought. Who would be so stupid to watch Liu Bei learn inner strength? Besides, I'm such an upright person, I definitely won't have any feelings for Liu Bei. Lu Ming asked, Liu Bei. Imperial Uncle Liu. Pornographic novels. You win. However, this divine emperor has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Chen Guang, please say it quickly. This woman, Lu Fei's feelings for you are real. She wants to do something with you now because she believes in your title as the Dolua world's great magister. Now that you said you can't return to your hometown, she is worried that your heart will be empty, afraid that you will be sad, so she wants to comfort you and take the opportunity to establish her position in your heart. Chen Guang was stunned. Although he felt that Lu Ming's words were too low on Lu Fei, it seemed to make sense. A woman's heart was indeed unfathomable. The ones who understood women the most weren't men, but other women. Alright, if what you said is right, then what should I do now? You have to understand your own heart. Do you want to become stronger, or do you want to satisfy your lower half? Don't make it sound so bad. I'm having a normal emotional exchange with my beloved sister Lu Fei. Pfft. Alright, becoming stronger or emotional exchange, which one is more tempting to you? You are the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, a man who will rule over the 3,000 worlds in the future. If a man has power, what can't he have? Chen Guang, it sounds like you're going to persuade me to learn inner strength. I also want to become stronger, but how can I let down Sister Lu Fei's passion? I have to be a man. Pooh. Then let me help you decide. What are you doing? Chen Guang exclaimed in his heart, but it was already too late. As soon as Lu Ming finished speaking, his body stiffened. He felt a chill in his crotch, as though it was being blown by the wind. Sister Liuli doesn't have time to care about you right now. I'll do it. What did you do? You probably don't know, although this flower is a latecomer, this flower has already partially fused with the Holy Grail. This flower can also send some godly power to you for free, allowing you to experience the special service of the God King. What special services? It's not difficult to make your pile driver run out of oil temporarily. What? Chen Guang cried out in shock. Then, he stuck his hand into his crotch, and his entire body felt terrible. To think that I, the dignified and strongest pile driver in history, could be said to be invincible, killing gods and Buddhists, had actually become a pile of mud. You! How can you do this? Stop struggling and go read. At least you'll be resting tonight. Lu Ming said sinisterly. Chen Guang secretly gritted his teeth. He used to think that Liuli was the most unreasonable person in the world, but now he understood that it was because Lu Ming had been suppressed by Liuli previously. Now that he had given her some space, she revealed her true nature and gave him a head-on blow. How cruel was that? Chen Guang felt wronged as he lit 7 candles and arranged them in a 7-star formation in the bedroom. Then, he turned his head and silently looked at the bathroom where Lu Fei was bathing. The sound of water was still there, but the boiling blood in his heart had already turned ice-cold along with the pile driver that had completely stopped working. Old man, I have the heart to kill the enemy, but I don't have the strength to reverse the situation. Beautiful Miss Lu Fei, I have continuously cast forbidden spells today, and my mental strength and mana have been greatly depleted. Previously, when I was outside, I had been forcing myself to not let people worry, but now, exhaustion is attacking from the depths of my soul like a tide. I have to meditate to recover my energy, and I must not be disturbed. After your bath, you should rest early. If there's anything else, we can talk tomorrow. The considerate Chen Guang also didn't want to hurt Lu Fei's heart, so he thought of an especially great excuse, and even borrowed a new term from magic fantasy novels that could scare people. Meditation. That's right, just a little more than 100 degrees would be enough to know. Meditation was the standard for mages to train in seclusion in the novels. It was a very serious matter, and Lu Fei would definitely understand his difficulties. You're a considerate man. If it weren't for you, I would have been more considerate. Aren't I doing this for your own good? I really thank your whole family. As Chen Guang cursed, he sat down in the middle of the 7-star candle array, then took out his phone and searched for the Song of Morality. In the era of mobile reading, everyone could read wirelessly. Training inner strength also had to keep up with the times. Reading on the phone, everything could be found with one search, convenient and easy to use, no need to explain. You must remember to support the original version. Besides, he was about to enter the sect in 1 day and ascend to godhood in 6 days, who would have the time to go to the bookstore to look for printed books? However, there was a discordant voice messing around in his heart. Where's the promised golden lotus? You're playing the golden lotus. Where's the promised bath and change of clothes? No time. I already told Sister Lu Fei that I wanted to meditate. Does your family's mages meditate while taking a bath? Then you should at least change your clothes. Haven't I already changed into my pajamas? I think it's better to wear a Taoist robe. Although the inner strength in this world isn't considered an inferior ability to this emperor, it represents a new realm for a brat like you. You can't take it lightly. So today's timing doesn't seem too coincidental. Why don't you let go of my pile driver first and let me do Sister Lu Fei tonight? Then, we'll plan properly tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll arrange for someone from Tianguang brokerage to buy some precious ancient books, then I'll take a bath and change of clothes, fast for a day, then come again, save it, aren't you just a man with sperm in your brain? Stop struggling, there's no chance. I'm not as easy to talk to as Sister Liuli. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Which eye of yours thinks Liuli is easy to talk to? He looked at the time on his phone again. But it's only 10:00 now, it's not exactly midnight yet. Lu Minghua, that's not important. You start right now. Immediately. Immediately. I can't wait even a second. Don't force me to use my ultimate move, or I'll make sure you don't have oil for the rest of your life. Sigh, all right. Chen Guang lowered his head and looked down at his phone, resigned to his fate. The time wasn't right. Reading an article on his phone, not showering, and wearing pajamas, this was the state he was in when he was preparing to practice the painting manual to stimulate his inner strength. If Wenwen knew that Chen Guang was practicing the painting manual like this, she might be so angry that she would take the secret manual back. About 10 minutes later, Lu Fei walked out of the bathroom with a bath towel wrapped around her. She looked a little disappointed. She tiptoed to the door of Chen Guang's bedroom and listened carefully. She really didn't hear a single sound. She sighed and thought to herself that although she didn't know what was going on with the Grand Magister's meditation, seeing how serious he was, she really couldn't disturb him. Sigh, I thought this was a rare opportunity, but unfortunately, he's tired. Forget it, another day. At this time, Chen Guang didn't know that Lu Fei had returned to the guest room with a slightly dejected expression. Instead, he was sweating profusely while reciting the Song of Righteousness in his heart. As a descendant of the Wen family, the Song of Righteousness was the most frequently used when practicing the painting manual. It was extraordinary. It was written by Wen Tianxiang in prison. The words were heroic and awe-inspiring. When one read it seriously, one's emotions would be substituted, and the righteousness in one's heart would naturally rise. For example, Wen, as a typical representative of those who relied on the Song of Righteousness to enter the Tao, although she was a woman, her actions revealed a heroic and manly aura. In private, Chen Guang even ridiculed her as a tomboy because she was too manly. Before he officially started to read it, Chen Guang felt that reading the Song of Righteousness would bring out the best in a man like him. It was like a hero with a sword, Lu Bu with a red rabbit, a perfect match. When he first started to concentrate, his nose smelled the faint smell of smoke from the burning candles. In front of him, he saw several flames tumbling and jumping in the darkness. The mysterious 7 stars formation even led the candles to move. The candles that were originally fixed on the ground seemed to have grown legs, circling around him. Chen Guang knew that this should be an illusion. This was the mystery of the 7 stars formation. It was precisely using the smell of incense from the candles and the mysterious wandering changes that made it easier for the cultivator's heart to sink at night, and it was easier for him to enter the artistic conception of the writing. Chen Guang's heart calmed down. He could almost recite the Song of Righteousness backwards, but he could not find the feeling of righteousness that arose spontaneously. He recognized every word, he understood the meaning of every line of the poem. He could also understand when Tianqiang's firm willpower when he wrote this 5-character ancient poem under that kind of circumstances. But his heart could not give birth to any feelings, and he could not put himself in the shoes of the poem. This made his heart hurt, and it made him understand a rather cruel fact. Old man was not upright enough. Oh my! How is this possible? I will never admit it. I am such an upright person, you won't be able to find me even with a lantern. My sense of righteousness is so strong. I like to uphold justice. I see injustice on the road and pull out my sword to help. I risk my life to save people. Although they are all beauties, but my heart is pure. But I was actually looked down upon by the Song of Righteousness. This is not scientific. Why not change to another book? Please accept the sincere suggestion from the dear cried deity emperor. After all, I feel that the cheapness in your bones exceeds your righteousness. Really, righteousness cannot suppress evil. The dear cried deity emperor muttered in his heart again. Chen Guang, impossible. I won't accept it. After another half an hour, he bit his lips, wishing he could look up to the sky and roar, Heavens! Earth! This is a misunderstanding. It's really just a misunderstanding. Don't quibble, your heart will not lie. You really are not an upright person, change to another book. I will change to the Book of Songs. After another 10 minutes, when he read the Book of Songs, Guan Guan Ju Dove, in the continent of the river. A fair and graceful lady, a gentleman's desire, an image suddenly appeared in his mind. He was standing on a small boat, drifting along the riverside. In the distance, there was a woman in a long white dress, bending over the riverside to wash her clothes. The image in his mind became clearer and clearer. With an inexplicable thought, the small boat drifted with the current towards the washerwoman. As he got closer, he realized that the collar of the woman in white was slightly open, and the 2 half-breasts were faintly discernible as she washed her clothes. It was very alluring. Looking at her face again, it was a little strange. At first glance, it seemed to be misty, but when he concentrated, it looked like Lu Fei. His mind wandered a little, and when he looked again, it looked like Wen, and when he looked again, it became Zhuo Jingxi. This woman's face was indescribable, it did not look like anyone, but it looked like everyone. Chen Guang squinted his eyes, wanting to see clearly, but his body suddenly trembled, and he recovered from the illusion. I really have to give it to you. A fair and graceful lady, a gentleman's desire, and you almost broke through the seal of my divine power. You are going against the heavens. Accept your fate. Truly, this is your true destiny. This is what is engraved in the depths of your soul. That's right, you were born wretched. Why do you have to be noble? Lu Ming was exposed by his words. When Chen Guang was distracted just now, the pile driver that ran out of oil almost started by itself. Chen Guang blushed slightly. I don't believe you, let me try the Analects of Confucius again. Unfortunately, the words of Confucius could not bring him even the slightest feeling. He tried Yu Fei's rivers run red, failed. He tried Su Shi's Shuidiao Getu, failed. Du Fu's charcoal cellar, failed. Li Bai's bringing in the wine, failed. He even tried spring snow in the Qin garden, but it still failed. Unknowingly, with him dawdling like this, it was already past 12 o'clock, and the 7 candles were almost burned out. Really, look at Jean Ping Mei. If you don't get the feeling after the 7 candles are burned out, you will really be blind tonight. You only have 10 candles at home, and they are not sold outside at this time. Lu Ming reminded him very considerately. Chen Guang was silent, and his heart was desolate. Something must have gone wrong. I'll call Wen Wen and ask. That's right, it's decided happily. That. Wen Wen, what's going on? I tried Song of Morality, Analects of Confucius, Rivers Run Red, and so on, but it's not enough, and I can't get the feeling. On the other end of the phone, Wen Wen was puzzled. You're going to practice the inner strength now. Stop fooling around. I've already finished practicing the first half of the painting volume. My body has reached the great perfection, and I've reached the standard of the second half, okay? How could Wen Wen believe his boasting? Stop fooling around. Be good, listen to me, I'm not in a bad situation now, you don't have to rush to help me. Don't be greedy when practicing martial arts, especially when practicing inner strength. If your body isn't good enough, it's almost impossible to stimulate inner strength. Even if you have heaven-defying luck and can barely stimulate it, it's not necessarily a good thing. Your body can't withstand the impact of inner strength, and if you accidentally stimulate inner strength, what will you do if your muscles are torn apart? Chen Guang said, I understand the logic, but I can responsibly tell you that I've really completely met, and even exceeded the requirements of the first half of the inner strength. Don't ask me how I did it, I can't explain it very clearly, but this is the truth. The candles are almost burned out, quickly give me some constructive suggestions. Wen Wen knew his character. Although he usually liked to make jokes, when he was serious, he was very reliable, so she really believed him. She thought about it and said, why don't you try other essays? Because everyone's character and body are different from person to person. Although many of my ancestors and I rely on the Song of Righteousness to stimulate qi, there are also many people who use other essays, you know. Chen Guang sighed, didn't I tell you just now? I've tried all the essays that were used by the ancestors recorded in the attached pages of the painting volume. I only felt something when I read the book of songs about a fair and virtuous lady and a gentleman's desire. On the other side, Wen Wen was silent for a while. Her mind subconsciously recalled the bits and pieces since she met this guy, and faintly said, this is really in line with your character. Oh yes, I remembered a book, you can try it. Chen Guang was overjoyed, calling her was indeed the right choice. What magical book? Jade Cattail Hasek. F***CK. Chapter 823. Chen Guang didn't argue with Wen Wen for long before he hurriedly hung up the phone. There weren't many candles left. Tonight, he had already coaxed Lu Fei to sleep alone. If he still couldn't get some feeling out of it, it would really be a double loss. Silently looking at the 3 big words, Jean Ping Mei, on the phone, he moved his eyes away again and again. Although Wen Wen's suggestion was more vigorous, he didn't want to admit that he was so cliché. The old man was a person with a goal and a realm. Even if he was reading erotic books to get the feeling, he had to read something a little more serious. That praying mat was so straightforward, so explosive, and had such a large scale. It should be severely criticized. How could it be used to practice martial arts? The old man was lecherous but not obscene, lecherous but not lascivious. Even if he was a thief, he had to be a refined thief. That's right, it was Xiao Mei. He opened Jean Ping Mei and then quickly turned the page. He went straight to the exquisite description of the most intense battle between the Golden Lotus and official Shimin. It was really a fierce battle. The sky was dark, the moon and the sun were dim, the wind was blowing, the clouds were surging, and the earth was shaking. In short, the feeling was very strong. Under the pull of his subconscious and the 7-star candle array, he almost completely fell into it. However, after another 10 minutes, when he thought he had completely burst out of his emotions and was about to start activating his inner strength, something went wrong again. The tide-like feeling that he had accumulated with great difficulty suddenly faded away without warning. At this time, the candle had burned to the last half and could only last for about 10 minutes. Lu Ming, I think you're holding me back. You see, I'm already reading erotic books. Alright, I admit it. Compared to the Song of Righteousness, I'm indeed more suitable for erotic books. Then, shouldn't you let go of little Guang? I was almost there and should have been breathing to activate the sense of qi, but after being pressured by you, my heart is like still water. Don't make me waste time. Lu Ming, this emperor is very happy that you can correctly recognize your own nature, but this matter really can't blame me. Although I'm suppressing your pile driver now, the reason is that you're not focused enough and excited enough. If you really meet the requirements of this painting scroll, the seal I placed on you will naturally be broken. Now that you are still lacking, it can only mean that Jean Ping Mei is not powerful enough. Wen understands you better. The book she recommended for you should be just right. Do you really have to rely on meaty futons? That's right. Chen Guang lowered his noble head. Tuanzi, so be it. Anyway, he had already given up. Something must have gone wrong with him and he had chosen the wrong path. He wanted to be a righteous hero, but he was mercilessly labeled as a walking pile driver. He picked up the book, and with a resolute and stirring mood, he quickly flipped to the classic passage in the classic Jade Dumpling, and began to judge it with grief and indignation. Time passed quickly, and the candlelight swayed gently. There were fewer and fewer candles left, and they gradually showed signs of extinguishing. The light also became dimmer. But in the eyes of the righteous young man, Chen Guang, these hazy candlelight became brighter, as if they had turned into beautiful naked people. As the flames twisted, these little people also posed in all kinds of seductive poses. His breathing became heavier, and the little people in his eyes also became bigger. When he looked up, it seemed to be right in front of him, but when he reached out to grab it, it seemed to be far away. In fact, a normal erotic book should not have such an ability. With Chen Guang's willpower, if he had been prepared, he would not have fallen into it. But now, in order to practice the painting volume, not only did he let down his guard, but he also took the initiative to strengthen his comprehension in his mind and strengthen his artistic conception. With the support of the 7-star white wax array, the illusion became more and more violent. If it was a normal successor of the Wen family, he would have gradually entered the state of mind of the author of the Song of Righteousness, or Rivers Run Red, and a strong sense of justice would be born in his heart. He would feel injustice for the poor people, hate the heavens for being unfair, and shoulder justice with the world in his heart. But for Master Guang, who had entered the Tao by reading erotic books, he could only say no. This time, Lu Ming did not disturb Chen Guang, but secretly cheered him on. In fact, the little trick she used on Chen Guang with her divine power was more like setting a ruler for Chen Guang than suppressing him. The painting volume was profound to mortals, but in front of deity emperors like Lu Ming and Lu Li, there was no secret at all. With just a glance, they could completely see through its mysteries. The strength she used to suppress Chen Guang's pile driver was exactly the same as when Chen Guang's emotions were stimulated to the standard. When Chen Guang was completely immersed in the article, his invincible pile driver regained his freedom and raised his head to the sky. Finally, the last drop of wax was burned out of the 7 candles and they suddenly went out. The lights in the room immediately dimmed. Chen Guang threw his phone on the bed beside him and slowly raised his head. His eyes actually glowed slightly in the dark night. Little Chen Guang, on the other hand, fiercely pushed his loose pajamas out of the tent. He succeeded, but also failed. At this time, his mind could be said to be empty, without the slightest superfluous thought, except for love and lust. So far, the women who were not too ordinary with him appeared in his mind one after another like beautiful scenes in a kaleidoscope. They were all naked, twisting their graceful bodies and extremely charming. The Poor One family's painting volume, a good orthodox martial art, had actually been practiced by him to such an unorthodox way. In fact, this was also one of the reasons why the Wen family's painting volume was never circulated. Of course, not everyone in the Wen family was good, and not everyone was awe-inspiring and righteous. But with the family's bloodline, even if they had all kinds of distracting thoughts, they could still rely on the Wen family's bloodline to correct their behavior. Even if the Song of Righteousness was ineffective, the other articles chosen were mostly bold and unrestrained, and even if there was a deviation, at most it would be the Book of Songs and Songs of Chu, and it would not deviate to the side of erotic books. But Chen Guang was not a member of the Wen family, and his style was also very improper, and now there was a problem. Although he prided himself on being righteous and could control his actions most of the time, his bold and unconstrained mind always liked to let his wretchedness run wild in the wilderness of his mind, like a wild horse galloping unrestrainedly, advancing 1,000 miles in a day. Anyway, it was not against the law to think about it in the mind. It was not like I would lose a piece of flesh if I fantasized about it. I have used all my strength to barely be upright, and I can't be allowed to control my free and unrestrained thoughts. Anyway, no one else would know. Now, even if he deceived the world, he still could not deceive his own heart, and his true colors were revealed in front of the painting volume. Wenwen also did not expect this situation. When she first gave him the secret manual, it was because she felt that just the outer force alone would be enough for Chen Guang to spend more than 10 years. This secret manual was only a prop to attract him and divert his attention, so that he would not be hot-headed and want to get involved in his own Jianghu disputes all day long. Moreover, Chen Guang's age had long passed the best age for martial arts practitioners to shape their appearance, and the hope of him achieving anything was even slimmer. As for whether or not Chen Guang would be able to master it, and how long it would take for him to feel qi, Wenwen did not care at all. Even if you beat Wenwen to death, she would not have thought that this guy was the true son of destiny, and that he had the heavenly holy grail, which was a cheat, and could forcibly make the impossible possible for him. As for recommending Jade that praying mat to Chen Guang, she did not really believe it, because she understood Chen Guang, and knew that this kind of unconventional writing was suitable for him. Praying mat was considered an ancient book with some background, and it was definitely better than Young X Purity, Young X Guest, and Golden Scale, right? If you were to master those books, then it would really be the family's reputation, and the family's misfortune. Recommending praying mat was just to avoid the worst outcome. All in all, with countless coincidences, Master Guang really succeeded in defying the natural order tonight. He started to build his physical body at the old age of 20, and in just a short 2 months, his physical body had reached perfection, which was far beyond the body quality required by the authentic painting volume. Now, his physique index was off the charts. Using the Song of Morality as a standard, his comprehension was originally not enough, but after changing to an unorthodox path, he was able to kick an exquisite curved ball, and his comprehension index broke through the sky. Less than 5 minutes after the white candle extinguished, a little mouse, Qi, was born in his dantian, and began to run rampant in his body, passing through all the veins in his body. Everywhere it went, his muscles trembled, and his veins expanded, as if there was a surge of heat. His nature-defying physique allowed him to completely break Wenwen's painting volume record of activating Qi in the fastest time. Strictly speaking, it only took him 15 minutes. He succeeded on his first try, and it was extremely violent. If Wenwen was a genius that only appeared once in 100 years, then Master Guang was a godly talent that surpassed the ages and dazzled the contemporaries. However, Chen Guang did not feel happy at all, and he did not even realize that there was qi in his body that was flowing along the veins in the first stage of the painting volume. There was no other reason than that he was about to explode, and he was completely dumbfounded. If one often walks by the river, how can one's shoes not be wet? He was lazy, and stole a new realm, and used tricks to get the fake scripture. If one were to bring the martial arts of the evil sects to the Jianghu in ancient times, it would simply be a crime against the world, a treason. Even now, Lian Qing was a member of the evil sections. The lascivious but not lascivious Master Guang had no choice but to lower his head to the true grievance he had been guided by the painting volume. Reason told him to be a righteous youth. However, reason was being rubbed against the ground by the kaleidoscope in his heart. This feeling was somewhat painful and torturous. He gritted his teeth. According to the painting volume, when activating qi, the cultivator would indeed be deeply affected because he would be completely immersed in the text. There was a possibility of some small problems happening if he entered the Tao with erotic books, but he was confident that he had seen all kinds of storms. At worst, he could just take a cold shower. However, he had neglected 2 points. First, most people who practiced the painting volume cultivated righteous qi, and no one had practiced with erotic books. No one had told him how to deal with such a situation. Second, he was not an ordinary man, but a walking cannon Chen Guang who possessed a peerless artifact, the world's strongest pile driver. Heavy firepower was like a nuclear weapon. Once it was completely unsheathed, it would reveal its ferocious face. It was not something that could be suppressed easily. However, he still planned to rely on himself. That's right, I want to prove that the painting volume was wrong about me. Although my method of cultivation is wrong, I am definitely a righteous person. I will never lower my head to evil. Evil will never prevail over good. Waves of sky-devouring flames were born in the void, rushing straight to the top of his head. He could not help but let out a low howl. At this moment, Lu Minggua's extremely sinister voice suddenly rang out in his heart. Little brat, why do you have to make life difficult for yourself? I said before that you can have both fish and bear's paw. Think about the room next to yours. Don't you want to have Fei Fei? Chen Guang groaned in pain and argued with Lu Minggua in his heart. No. Okay, I want to, but I have already asked Sister Lu Fei to go to sleep. Lu Minggua sneered even more sinisterly. But she has already heard your struggle and groan. She is about to knock on the door. What? As soon as Lu Minggua's voice fell, banging sounds came from Chen Guang's bedroom door. Outside, Lu Fei asked cautiously, Chen Guang. Grand Magister Right Chin. What's wrong with you? Are you okay? I heard you groaning in pain. Chen Guang's face stiffened. It's over. Opening the door, looking at Lu Fei who was only wrapped in a bath towel, he thought to himself, I am controlled by the devil to open the door. My hands and feet are completely out of my control. This is not my fault. In the next second, he supported the back of his neck with his right hand, leaned his elbow on the wall, and leaned his body at a 70-degree angle with the ground. His face bloomed with a bright smile like that of a grandmother wolf. Hey! Dear Madame Lu Fei, I am indeed a little uncomfortable. My face and mouth are also controlled by the devil. Chapter 8:24. You've already eaten the bear paw, and the taste seems a little strong. Now, you need to eat a fish to adjust the taste. Chen Guang, don't disappoint this empress. Sister Liuli and I both feel that you have too strong a human scent. You really should be more straightforward when doing things, have less scruples, and be more domineering. Chen Guang was still struggling in his heart as he muttered, "You're sending me on a path of no return." Dear Cry chuckled. What nonsense are you spouting? Where's the truth? But the path is chosen by you. This empress only helped you make a small decision when you couldn't make up your mind. If you don't believe me, listen to what your mouth is saying outside. The real devil is you. Outside, Lu Fei walked into the room and looked at him worriedly. Not well. Where is it? Didn't you say you wanted to meditate? I just did a search, and it seems that meditation can't be disturbed. Even I don't dare to disturb you. Don't tell me you've gone berserk. Chen Guang frowned slightly, and an inexplicable melancholy bloomed on his face. It was as if Marlon Brando had become young again and appeared in front of Lu Fei. He supported himself with one hand on the door frame and slowly bent down, looking straight into her eyes. Beautiful Madame Lu Fei, Your Excellency's guess isn't too accurate. Magicians are different from the people who practice martial arts in this world. This can't be called berserk. It should be called a magic power disorder. Ah. Magic power disorder. It sounded very serious. Then, is there anything I can help you with? Lu Fei clenched her hands in front of her chest, making a heart shape. Her eyes were filled with stars, and she was electrified by Chen Guang. Although Chen Guang had never won with his looks, and the reason why Lu Fei had taken a liking to him had nothing to do with his self-proclaimed handsome face and nose, as the saying goes, panin is in the eye of the beholder. In this situation, Lu Fei already had evil intentions in her heart, and coupled with Chen Guang's cheating acting skills, he was like a spark of lightning in Lu Fei's eyes. He was so handsome that he looked like a beam of light. Although women rarely chose men purely based on their appearance, who would mind if their sweetheart was a little more handsome? What's more, Chen Guang's handsomeness had reached a whole new level. I can't take it anymore, he's so handsome. I'm going to faint from his handsomeness. Why was it like this? My heart is beating so fast. I can't breathe. Who would have thought that I, the great Lu Fei, who prided myself on being knowledgeable, would actually have such a Mary Sue day? This is a stain on my life. But then again, was I blind in the past? Why didn't I notice his handsomeness earlier? Forget it, that's not important. What's important is that I was interested in him because of his talent, and now looking back, I didn't miss out on his handsomeness. It's just that I used to think that talent was the main course, and handsomeness was just a freebie. It didn't matter whether the freebie was worth money or not. Now it seems that I was really blind in the past. That was buying the casket and returning the pearls. His looks were the main course hidden under his superficial talent. Chen Guang was still smiling faintly, but from time to time, he would slightly frown, showing the pain he was suffering at the moment. He then used an extremely magnetic voice and said softly, Lu Fei, you can indeed help me now. As he spoke, his head drooped lower and lower, and the breath that came out of his nostrils blew directly on Lu Fei's face. Chen Guang's heart had never been so complicated before. His stubbornness made him not want to admit that this was him, but the words that came out of his mouth, the expressions on his face, and the movements of his body were completely out of his control. He was indeed completely dominated by the devil, but unfortunately, the devil was himself. It's hard to guard against a thief in the house day and night. I'm full of righteousness, but I've lost to myself. Yo, I didn't realize that you're quite interesting when you act cool. I say, Lu Ming, it's already late, you should go to sleep. I'm a little disgusted by the current situation. Also, how is this acting cool? I'm really handsome, okay? You're not acting. No. Then you're really lustful from the bottom of your heart. Alright, I admit that I'm acting. If going back on one's words is a curse, you shouldn't be holding your head down right now. I'm begging you, I can't control it anymore. Really, you should go and rest. The next scene is going to be inappropriate for children. Lu Ming, go to hell, do you think I want to see you that much? Goodbye, goodbye. If it weren't for this emperor working hard to help you today, giving you ideas and controlling the limits, would you be able to eat fish and bear paw together? You're really an ungrateful ingrate. Humph. Goodbye. This restless and fruit-bearing Lu Ming finally stopped moving. Chen Guang didn't know if she was really hiding or pretending, but it didn't matter. Anyway, he couldn't do anything to her. Whether he was really acting, or whether his heart was thinking and his body was moving, Chen Guang actually knew. The so-called quibbling was actually just a dead duck's mouth being stubborn. Men, they all cared about their face. How could they easily admit defeat? It's impossible that just because you say I'm an old pervert, I'm really an old pervert, right? Even if you're not wrong, I can't just shamelessly admit it right away, can I? Really, if you don't say it out loud, leave me a little face. But, to be honest, the current Sister Lu Fei looks really delicious. So tempting. I can't take it anymore. Hurry up and leave. Leave this place. Stay away from me. Sister Lu Fei, let's go to bed together and talk about life. I'm sick. My illness is called an incurable terminal illness that can't be cured by killing without love. Two voices rose and fell in his heart, one was him who was upright, the other was him who was a gentleman. In his heart, no one had the upper hand, but his body was completely gentlemanly. A gentleman was invincible. Lu Fei quietly reached out and closed the bedroom door, her back tightly pressed against the wall of the entrance. She was no longer afraid, but raised her eyes and looked straight into Chen Guang's eyes. No matter how this guy used his strong and overbearing aura to oppress her, she didn't move. Yes, that's right, I'm Lu Fei. I've never been afraid of anyone. This annoying guy, he really tortured me tonight. First, he left me hanging, then his magic power disorder. Such a big thing happened, his brain is almost out of order, but he's still bashful and unwilling to tell the truth. You only know how to make me fall here, you only know how to act cool, making my little heart beat so fast that it's about to have a heart attack, but you don't take the next step. Do you want to torture me to death? Do you think I haven't read novels or watched TV series? I don't know what magic power disorder is, but in my eyes, you're burning with desire. You need to balance yin and yang. You should be more straightforward, pick me up and throw me on the bed. Sigh, you're really a little brother. You're really good at pretending to be experienced, but you're not straightforward at all. Fortunately, you met me, sister. I'll let you see what sister's real skills are. She smiled charmingly. Say it, how can I help you? Say it. Do you want to eat me? Chen Guang was caught off guard by Lu Fei's sudden counterattack, and his heart was already in complete despair. It seemed that Sister Lu Fei couldn't leave. He secretly swallowed his saliva, his Adam's apple moved, and he vaguely replied with a word, yes. Lu Fei fiddled with her long hair again, gently pulled the bath towel a little, and slightly raised her eyebrows. If you eat me, it'll be fine. Chen Guang swallowed again, I can't take it anymore, I can't take it anymore this time. Lu Fei suddenly pulled the bath towel away completely, and her beautiful figure was completely exposed in front of Qin Guang. She was still smiling. Then why don't you say thank you to me? Qin Guang's mind exploded with thousands of thunderbolts. Because of watching Jade Dumpling, the boundless flames that were aroused soared into the sky, completely burning every inch of space in his mind. He gritted his teeth. Thank you. Being hugged by Qin Guang by the waist, little by little approaching the bed, Lu Fei's heart was filled with lingering pride. Look at you, you still want to fight with your sister. With a little trick from me, you'll be exposed. Monkey son, how can you escape from this goddess's palm? But then again, the magic that he learned as a great magister didn't seem to be proper. Although he used to be lecherous, he had never been in a state of extreme loss of control like today. Today's change must be because of the magic disorder that he mentioned. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Otherwise, with this kid's bashful and indecisive temperament, God knows when he would reach this step. Just as she was thinking like this in her mind, her body was lightly empty. She was placed on the bed by Qin Guang, sprawled on her back. Her unspeakable posture made Lu Fei a little bashful, but she quickly calmed down again. With a blush, she looked at Qin Guang and said, "Then from today on, in addition to your identity as a great magister, I have another secret with you?" Qin Guang grunted, "Yes, Sister Lu Fei. Why don't you call me beautiful Ms. Lu Fei?" I think you may prefer Qin Guang to write Qin. You're really sensitive and considerate little Qin Guang. You're right, a magician from another world is like Snow White's Prince Charming, but I still prefer that generation's god of speed who moved my heart. Do you still remember what I said to you in Xiangjiang? I said, if you can do it, not only can you conquer the entire racing world, you can also conquer me. Now is the time. This is my reward for you for being late. Qin Guang was greatly moved in his heart. For a moment, he actually suppressed his soaring desire. He slowly sat on the edge of the bed and turned his head, not daring to look at Lu Fei. After a long while, he said, "Sister Lu Fei, you're so good to me, don't say thank you. You've just said it once. You know me, so there's no need to feel burdened. I, Lu Fei, always do what I say. Dragging it to this day is already my failure as a human. But don't think that I'm so easy to fool. What I want is not just today. Once you've boarded my boat, it won't be so easy to get off. There's still a long way to go. You can't always look at me with the mentality of who owes the other. You only need to know one thing. From the moment I sat in your car at Fengquan Mountain, my heart only beats for you. That's enough. Men and women don't owe each other so much. It's fine as long as you're happy." As Lu Fei spoke, she turned over and pressed Qin Guang down on the bed. She leaned over and stared at him with a pair of beautiful eyes. Compared with other women, Lu Fei really had an extraordinary ability to enlighten people. If Jiang Yage had half of Lu Fei's eloquence, Qin Guang would have already been pressed to the ground by Jiang Yage. Qin Guang took a deep breath. "I understand. It's good that you understand. But you're sweating all over now. Go take a bath first." Finally, in the battle with him, Lu Fei completely gained the upper hand. She was extremely proud and ordered with the aura of a queen. She didn't want the most profound first impression of this guy to be the smell of sweat. She didn't think that this would be the last time she would be domineering tonight. When Qin Guang was taking a bath, she provoked the fire. 10 seconds later, she saw stars and rolled her eyes. She directly fainted in the bathroom. After half an hour, she woke up. Poor Qin Guang was holding on with a red body and a painful face. Lu Fei knew that he was afraid that she couldn't hold on, so he forcefully endured the magic disorder and didn't want to torture himself anymore. How can I admit that I can only hold on for 10 seconds? I don't believe it. She turned over and fought again. 15 seconds, dead. Another half an hour passed. She fought again and again. 20 seconds, dead. Are you still human? I don't know how to explain it. You should control it a little. This is so difficult. I can't control it now. Could it be that my body is too weak? No, I'm too strong. Then didn't you laugh at me for being weak? Another half an hour passed. 30 seconds, still dead. I can't. Lu Fei felt that her brain was about to explode. She couldn't hold on anymore. She really couldn't. This was the first time. She had already gone all out and put her life on the line. But if this continued, she would probably be sent to the hospital tomorrow. But this guy didn't feel relieved. Instead, he was in more and more pain. Again. Not again. Chen Guang pushed her away in pain. You can't continue anymore. You will get hurt. What could be more tragic than this? He had a body full of amazing martial arts, and he had the strength to conquer thousands of soldiers. It was not easy for him to find a suit of beautiful armor that fit him, and he was just waiting to put it on and fight the enemy. Unfortunately, his martial arts was too high. The armor couldn't bear the old man's strength. But you haven't. It's okay. I'll go out and run a lap. You can't do this. It's not good for your body. Moreover, you have a special reason. I want to help you. I didn't expect that. I'm so weak. It's okay. It's not a big deal. You can't just blow me up, right? It's not your fault. It's my own problem. What problem? To be honest, you can also see that my ability in this aspect is so strong that I'm afraid of myself. Lu Fei argued, so if it backfires, the consequences will be more serious. Chen Guang's temples were bulging. He was really in pain. I understand the reason, but you really can't hold on anymore. Even if you are willing to sacrifice your life to accompany me, you can't sacrifice yourself in vain. Wait a minute. I have an idea. Lu Fei suddenly clapped her hands. What? Chen Guang asked in confusion. Lu Fei sat up, lying on her stomach like a puppy. She turned around and looked back with an evil smile. There's another place. I shouldn't faint. Gulp. Chen Guang swallowed his saliva again. An hour later. Lu Fei, see, I'm not bragging, right? You've worked hard. You're welcome. Let me see. Don't move. It hurts. Chapter 825. The next morning. Well, Sister Lu Fei, I have to report to school today. I have a makeup exam in the morning. Chen Guang felt quite embarrassed. Logically speaking, he had tortured Lu Fei so miserably last night. Today should have been the day for them to continue to spread their feelings. However, he had directly missed many courses last semester. If he missed the makeup exam again, he would really have to take it again. With his current status, a mere bachelor's degree was really not worth mentioning. If he really wanted to be thick-skinned and think of a way to get a graduation certificate, in short, he just had to think of a way to get a graduation certificate without taking an exam. But he felt that there was something wrong with this. Even if this graduation certificate was not important, no matter how high his status was now, he really did not want his past 12 years of hard work to become a meaningless thing. If he really did such a thing and relied on power to get a graduation certificate that should not have belonged to him, then there would be no difference between him and people like Pan Jiang. It would also be a vote to deny the first half of his life from his childhood to the present. Even if he knew that privilege seemed to be able to control these common and seemingly irresistible rules in life, and he had now become one of the top few privileged classes, he was really unwilling to really use the privilege in his hands to destroy the creative life in the past 10 years. No matter what others thought of him, and no matter what other privileged classes thought of his life, Chen Guang felt that as a person, there were things he should do and things he should not do. In addition, didn't Xiao Linzi also cram for the Buddha's feet before the exam with him and others? Didn't he also cry like a ghost and howl like a wolf when he failed a course? Didn't he also secretly copy notes together during the exam? During the winter and summer holidays when he failed a course, didn't he watch others play games with tears in his eyes while he read textbooks? Xiao Linzi was born into the privileged class. He was one of the largest privileged classes in the country, but he forcibly lived as an ordinary person. This was not easy. It was easy to know but difficult to do, which was worthy of admiration. Chen Guang and Lin Jingwei knew each other well. He did not want Lin Jingwei to look down on him because of this. Apart from that, his parents, who knew which country they were currently traveling in, had warned him again and again before he left that he couldn't become famous. Although modern society was no longer a place where studying was the only thing that mattered, you had been working hard for more than 10 years and finally made it to your senior year. You were about to graduate. Don't be on the bed at dawn and drop the ball at the critical moment. In a sense, his parents' views were still at the level of ordinary people. They didn't know that with Chen Guang's current power, it would be a trivial matter for him to get them a graduation certificate. However, the two elders had a good saying: do you want to know what it's like to fight men alone? Want to know what mixed doubles taste like? Chen Guang expressed that he did not want to. He didn't want to experience mixed doubles, and he didn't want to be looked down upon by Lin Jingwei. What could he do? He still had to take the makeup exam. Lu Fei struggled to get up from the bed. She glared at him and said, "In your dreams. You have things to do, but I have things to do." Chen Guang said, "Huh?" Lu Fei stretched. "After you fell asleep last night, I called the investigation team in Wutuo again. They have no idea what happened yesterday. In their memory, they inspected several mining areas in Wutuo town according to the original plan. As for me, Director Liu, I said I had something urgent to do and went straight back to Wujing." Chen Guang nodded. "Is that so?" He was not surprised. After the punishment world was shattered, the few of them returned to Wutuo for a short rest. The streets were peaceful. People came and went, and the residents and tourists in the town were as usual. It was impossible to tell that this place had undergone a drastic change. Perhaps only the boss of the store that Chen Guang stole twice would feel that he had lost his clothes. As for everyone else, they weren't aware of it at all. The sun rose as usual, and there wasn't any difference between today and the past. Then, I called my dad again, and he scolded me harshly. He asked me why I left halfway through the inspection, and where I went. Sure enough, it was as you said. He didn't remember that I had asked him for help. And then? What did you say to your dad? Nothing much. How could I tell him that I left my business behind and ran out to meet you? I could only joke around with him. But I bought a plane ticket this morning, and I have to rush back to Wutuo at noon. Chen Guang was speechless. But you. As he said that, he looked at Lu Fei's smooth and round but with a meaningful look. Lu Fei blushed. What can I do? It's not that easy to be rich. How do you think my family got tens of billions of assets? Back then, my dad got into a car accident and broke a leg. The next day, He had to go to the conference room in a wheelchair to negotiate with people. Didn't that all come from him? What's with this little problem of mine? After saying that, she got up from the bed and prepared to put on her clothes. Ouch! She had just taken a step when she held her stomach with one hand and her butt with the other. She froze. Chen Guang supported her. Why don't you rest for a day? I'll come back after the makeup exam at noon. Lu Fei shook her head and continued to move forward. It's fine. I'll be fine after a few steps. Let me see. Oh my God. It's red and swollen. Which place are you talking about? 2. Are there any wounds? Are there any blood vessels? Nope. That's fine. The swelling will go down if I walk more. No, you really have to rest. Impossible. If I don't go to Wutuo today, my dad will die of anger. Chen Guang found that he couldn't dissuade this workaholic. Looking at Lu Fei struggling to move around the room, curling up in front of the mirror to dress up, he thought of something. Why some rich people are getting richer and some poor people are getting poorer and poorer. The poor feel that they are poor because society is wrong. It's the fault of the times. It's because the rich are born too well and seize the resources that they should have. In the past, Chen Guang also believed in this theory. When he saw Lu Fei and Zhong Bai addicted to racing, he only thought of these people as ignorant and incompetent rich second generations who only knew how to squander. But later, especially today, looking at such a stubborn Lu Fei, he probably understood something. Perhaps not every child of a rich family can be like Lu Fei, but it's not without reason that Lu Fei, the big sister in the circle of rich children in the 5 capitals, can get the support of everyone. At least the people who often hang out with her are not useless. As for Lu Fei herself, although she rarely bragged about what she did and what achievements she had, even managing a subsidiary company of Lu Chemical and only losing 500 million a year became a capital to brag about. But looking at her now, Chen Guang understood that it wasn't easy for her to manage this company. As the saying goes, men who work hard are especially handsome. In fact, women who work hard are also very handsome. Lu Fei simply tidied up. She usually didn't put on makeup, but her dark circles were a little heavy today, so she put on a little more eyeshadow. Sigh, look at your waist, it's about to break when you walk. I really feel sorry for you. Chen Guang rubbed his hands. Sigh, Sister Lu Fei. Don't apologize to me. If you do this again, I'll really be angry. Okay. Let's go eat. Don't you look at your watch. The university exam is at 9 in the morning, right? It's almost 8:20. Chen Guang was about to help Lu Fei out of the room when the door suddenly opened. Looking up, it was Wu Miaowan. Wu Miaowan was holding a bowl of medicine in her hand, and there was a small ceramic tube in a plastic bag hanging from her wrist. Little Miaowan, this is... Wu Miaowan first closed the door, then chuckled. Come, Chief Magician, it's been hard on you. Then, she handed the bowl of medicine to Lu Fei. Sister Lu Fei, drink it while it's hot. Both Chen Guang and Lu Fei were still in a daze. Wu Miaowan took out the ceramic bottle from the plastic bag and opened the lid. A minty fragrance wafted into their nostrils. Sister Lu Fei, for external use. Use it now, immediately. I guarantee that your swelling and pain will be reduced in 2 to 3 hours. What's going on? Chen Guang was extremely puzzled. Wu Miaowan put everything down, then sat on the sofa and crossed her legs. You're still asking me? Last night, when I left with my sweetheart, the two of you were exchanging flirtatious glances. My sweetheart and I aren't blind, we could tell at a glance that something was up. And then, my sweetheart and I were halfway through our work at the station when she sent me back. My little sweetheart said that our big chrysanthemum elder is an animal. He brought his own mortar. Even with her high level of kung fu, she almost died. Sister Lu Fei, although your body is considered tough among ordinary people, you definitely won't have a good time. My sweetheart, let me brew medicine for Sister Lu Fei. Isn't it useful now? I was in the room next door, but the two of you were so noisy that I was blushing. Chen Guang and Lu Fei, how **king embarrassing. Wu Miaowan saw the two of them fidgeting and chuckled. You two are still shy. What's our relationship? The three of us are the only team in this world that can prove Grand Magician Right Chen's identity. We share a big secret. We're on the same side. Unlike Lu Fei, Wu Miaowan seemed to care more about Chen Guang's identity as a grand magician. It seemed like her desire to learn magic hadn't died yet. Even though Chen Guang had hinted that his magic cultivation method wasn't too proper, not only did she not seem to mind, she even became more enthusiastic about it. Xian Qin was really something. She was really meticulous. She had already considered this point in advance. All right. I'll go back to the station first. My sweetheart can't handle it alone. With that, Wu Miaowan slipped away again, pretending that nothing had happened. Chen Guang and Lu Fei looked at each other for a few seconds. Lu Fei burst out laughing. Xian Qin was right. You're full of love tribulations. In my opinion, Wu Miaowan won't be able to run away. Chen Guang quibbled. Are you kidding me? Little Miaowan and I are pure. We're just shallots mixed with tofu. You're pure now, but she won't be able to run later. You're not pure anymore. Sigh. What do you mean by a sigh? You're still pretending to be innocent after getting what you want. Otherwise, why do you think Xian Qin asked Wu Miaowan to come back instead of herself? That's because Wu Miaowan is the successor of Thousand Flower Valley. She's especially good at alchemy and medicine. Really? Chen Guang began to lose confidence. Maybe it's true. Actually, Xian Qin and Lu Fei had thought this through very thoroughly. Just as Wu Miaowan said, the three of them knew the same big secret about Chen Guang. Apart from that, there was no point in hiding anything from Chen Guang. Instead, it would just create unnecessary ill feelings for no reason. It was better to take advantage of the perfect timing and make things clear from the beginning. When they got along in the future, they could do whatever they wanted. There was no need to hold it in and torment each other for no reason. Although Xian Qin seemed to be unreliable, she was very meticulous at critical moments. Lu Fei was also quick-witted. She instantly understood Xian Qin's intentions. She understood that this was the reason why she asked Wu Miaowan to come back. Only Chen Guang's mind was frozen in the middle. Idiot, don't be stupid. Help me apply the medicine. I'm in a hurry to go out. Let me do it. What else? I can't see it myself. Hurry up, I'm warning you. Don't give me any more trouble. I really have to go to Wutuo town at noon. Hey, trust me a little. Do you think I don't know how serious I am? It's not like I'm completely dominated by my lower body. Hee. Xian Qin already said that you're a mortar. I think you're a missile. Your words are especially unconvincing. About 7 or 8 minutes later, the two of them finally went downstairs. Needless to say, the secret recipe of Thousand Flower Valley that Wu Miaowan had personally brewed was really effective. Lu Fei's movements were much more agile in the time it took to go downstairs. He did not know what the ingredients of the plaster she brought were, but it was definitely a very expensive medicine. It was not until he sent Lu Fei to a taxi and made sure that there were staff from Lu Conglomerate waiting at the airport that Chen Guang felt at ease and headed to school. Standing at the school gate, his mind was momentarily muddled. A summer had passed, and he stood in the same place, but his state of mind had long changed. This summer vacation had been too fulfilling and rich. Too many things had happened. If nothing went wrong, he would not be able to see Wen in this school for a while. Forget it. No matter what, now that the shattered world had been destroyed, the only things left in his heart were those restless martial artists and the former director of the Special Affairs Bureau, Ouyang Tianqing, whose whereabouts were unknown and whose fate was unknown. But it didn't matter. Now that the old man's inner force had been formed, and he held great power. He had the army under his control, and he had the favor of the old masters. I don't believe that I can't deal with the remnants of the Jianghu even with the strength of the entire country. What's more, Wenwen's martial strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Although he did not know what had happened to her, Wenwen herself was strong enough. On my side, be it top-notch martial strength or military configuration, I'll crush you without explanation. Whoever comes, I'll destroy them. As he displayed his ambition in his heart, he returned to his dorm to pack his bag and head straight to the makeup exam classroom. However, when he pushed the door open and entered, the first words from Bai Nyangzi and Bai Fan hit him hard. Yo, brother Guang. Long time no see. I just looked at the exam schedule. You'll be taking the Modern Chemistry Basics 4, right? How's your revision going? You've had quite a fulfilling summer. Chen Guang's face paled. Modern Chemistry Basics 4. What was that? Why did it sound so familiar? He seemed to have heard someone mention it not long ago, but when he thought about it carefully, it seemed so far away. Don't talk to me, I want some time alone, and don't ask me who quiet is. Damn it. Completely. No. Review. I've forgotten. His lofty aspirations vanished in a puff of smoke in an instant. In his days, he could vaguely see the familiar mix of a man and a woman dancing wildly in front of him like the stars in the sky. This time, it was really a hard landing. Damn it. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.